Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody here this evening and those that are watching on cable. We have, before we get started, we have the NORCAM agreement issue. Do we have everybody that's here interested in the NORCAM issue here?
Kim just went down the hallway.
Well, why I ask is that at 7:30 we have an audit report. I guess we could do the minutes, town council reappointment, sign the cross easement agreement, and then still have time.
We're still waiting for people to come in.
Okay,
They're
all right.
on the road. Somebody's coming.
I know that at 7:30 we're going to have to do the audit report. It's going to take some time, so then,
Fine.
yeah.
He went down to get them,
Oh.
see if they could meet.
Well, while we're waiting for Greg, Michael, we have the minutes of May 16th, regular executive session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Make a note that Mr. O'Leary should be here around 7:30.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the May 16, 2011 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Prisco, seconded by Mr. Delaney. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? We have the executive session of May 16th. Mr. Prisco?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the May 16, 2011 executive session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Prisco, seconded by Mr. Delaney. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
June 6th, regular session.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the June 6th, 2011 regular session minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Prisco, seconded by Mr. Delaney. Discussion? Mr. Delaney?
I know Secretary made note when I stepped out, but in terms of the actual vote, there's no, although it's a 4-0 vote, there's no indication that I was not present at that time. Does it need to be, where she notes that I was not in the room?
Which item are you referring to, Mr. Delaney?
Okay,
Well,
right.
all the items where you see a 4-0 vote that was taken, which all in item 1.
Yeah, below
Item
it says,
3.
it says when you came
Yeah.
back.
Right, so,
Bullet number 3.
I mean, it's, if you think the time is fine, the time is fine. To note that I was not present during those votes, it's fine by me.
So noted. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have the executive session of June 6th. Is it June 6th?
No, I don't
No,
have
we didn't have any.
executive
No,
session.
there isn't
We didn't have a session, an executive session.
No, that's right, we didn't.
We do not have an
We did not.
executive
We
session.
didn't,
on the
okay. It's
6th.
just the way it's noted in the,
Yeah.
okay. Theo, is everybody here?
No.
No? All right, we'll just move on with our agenda then.
Who's coming?
Public comment? Anyone here for public comment? Town council reappointment, Mr. Beliconis?
Board members, the board annually appoints counsel to serve for the period of July 1 through June 30th. In this case, the recommendation before you is to consider the reappointment of Copeland and Page, PC, as legal counsel for the term of July 1, 2011 through June 30th of 2012.
Discussion?
Just for discussion purposes, I know it seems to be just a matter of course where we, on an annual basis, renew the agreement with Copeland and Page. Not saying that they've done town a disservice, but does it make sense at some point in time to send out requests for proposals, other council to submit, so we can evaluate what we're getting versus what else is out there from other attorneys or other firms? Just so we, on an annual basis, we're not just re-upping Copeland and Page.
Certainly, you could do that if that's the board's prerogative. You certainly have a right to do that.
In terms of budget versus expenditures and legal counsel, are we gonna finish the year?
Yeah, we've managed the budget quite well this year.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Yule?
Yes. I think Sean makes a very good point. Like any service that we need or anybody does work for the town, we probably every so often should at least go through a process to see if we're getting what we think we're getting and the services are and the pricing is commensurate with the competition, if I may use the term. But I think that's something we could look at going forward.
Just keep in mind, there's no requirement typically. Many contracts require you to do a competitive procurement process. Professional services such as legal counsel and CPAs such as Mr. Hingston this evening, those don't require any type of, but again, certainly if the board decides wants to do that, we can move forward for the next round to do that. Certainly can.
I think you just, I've had my differences on a couple of occasions with, specifically around the Eisenhower property and what went on back then with, which is not clear exactly who dropped the ball associated with providing timely information, but the one advantage a firm like Copeland and Page provides is they do represent a large number of municipalities, and as a result have a very broad team of expertise that on occasion has proved to be valuable. That being said, I don't have a problem with looking for
Yeah, I think in the future it'd be
taking a look at
worthwhile
other.
doing due diligence to make sure that they rise to the top, and that's the firm that we should continue having our legal services run through.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Well-
Do we have a motion? Or,
Well,
I'm
actually-
sorry, did you want to make a comment?
Well, I just want to maybe feed off that a little bit. Make sure I understand you, Bob, based on your comments. So are you in agreement with Mr. Delaney that we should probably, this is the year to send it out for bids?
No, I think
Or are we gonna wait?
I think at this point, we should make the appointment and consider, next year, looking at.
Next year.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we can just make something in the minutes that we're going to commit to next year running this as an open competition.
Yeah, I would say that we should start the process sometime after the first of the year if we're looking to, bring on a firm, whether it's going with Copeland and Page again, but by January, February next year, we should start that process.
Okay. Good. I don't have
Mr.
anything else.
Prisco.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move to reappoint Copeland and Page PC as legal counsel for the town of North Reading for a term July 1, 2011 through June 30th, 2012.
Motion by Mr. Prisco. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Delaney. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Signing the acceptance. Theo?
No, I'm just,
No, I thought you were trying to get my attention.
no, sorry.
Sign the acceptance of cross easement access agreement on Elm Street. This is as a result of the vote of town meeting. They've approved the board to sign that agreement.
You may want to, my suggestion is you may want to hold off. I don't know if you're going to get a majority to sign that agreement.
Right.
Okay.
Because right now you
All
don't.
right, Steve is not here yet. Once you know, once it's approved and the board is unanimous on it, not unanimous, you know, has a majority, it doesn't mean you can't sign it.
Yeah, I didn't sign it the last time, I'm not about to sign it.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna sign it this time around either.
Okay. We will hold off. Hingston's not here yet. Mr. Hingston, no. You wanna hold off on discussing the NORCAM agreement? Yes? No? Yes, not?
Old and new. Wanna do some old and new?
I want to do liaison assignments when we have a full board.
Right.
Town administrator's report?
Sure. You could refer to the copy that I sent out this afternoon.
Okay. Greg, you put it in the same folder, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want, there's so many in here now.
Supplemental. It does have a date, Michael.
Ah, all right, thank you. I was looking for the date then.
Yeah, Greg, I know there's a lot of stuff going on. I would just suggest that anything that gets loaded to Dropbox, if it can have at least a date of our meeting,
In the title.
most of them do, in the title of it.
Yeah, that just makes it super helpful.
It'd be helpful, that's all.
Has everyone got a copy of the report?
Yes.
Okay. Let me start with number one, concerning the budget that was adopted at town meeting. The amount that was voted by town meeting, $50,189,520. I'm informed through the finance department that that is an incorrect number. The amounts that pertain to each of the line items were correct. However, the corrected amount was $50,082,511, which was the amount that I had actually identified going into town meeting. And you'll recall that there was a conversation that took place just prior to the budget vote where that amount was changed and revised and included in the budget motion. In speaking with the finance director, he indicates to me that he didn't understand the calculations which totaled the correct budget amount, and the reasons for that really aren't entirely clear to me because the calculation was fairly simple. Nevertheless, there does need to be a corrective action at the October town meeting, not specific to any line item. However, the bottom line does need to be adjusted before we set the tax rate in the fall. And so the correct amount needs to be consistent with the $50,082 number that I had referenced earlier.
Was that number one of the numbers that we had earlier at town meeting?
Yeah, it was the number that when we sat down at 6 o'clock that I gave you, and that was the corrected number. And really the reason why the number was incorrect, you'll remember if you went through the budget detail, it excluded the schools. So the total operating budget was $30 million was my recollection. And then if you totaled in the schools at $24 million, it came out to $54 million, and then you deducted out the debt service, which was a separate motion. So that was simply how the calculation was done. And again, it seemed to me fairly simple in terms of getting to that number. But at town meeting, the finance director indicated that it wasn't correct, and it turned out that the proposal that was put before you was incorrect.
You explained to me what the process is. We went through a process where we pushed out town meeting. We had the omnibus article included in the warrant that went out some number of weeks prior to town meeting. When that's prepared, who reviews it? I would hope there's more than one set of eyes looking at it.
There is.
And it seems like these errors, there's multiple errors, it appears to be. One being, school budget wasn't even included in it. And then there's this error in terms of what the total budget amount is, so.
You exactly summarized it correctly. The major flaw was the fact that if you look at the budget detail for Article number 8, the line items, it excluded the board's recommendation for the school department budget, which to me was fairly obvious, and that is a document that gets produced by the finance department and gets reviewed by the finance department and gets inserted into the warrant. It should have been, frankly, have caught at that time. That itself was not the problem, though, because you recall the motion at town meeting specified that the school department number was $24 million and change, and so that's really not a major issue. The major issue was the fact that the finance department didn't have a handle on how that number was arrived at. And so when they, you know, it's easy to look at it when you put it together in an Excel spreadsheet, but when you sit down with a calculator and you try to work up that number, they didn't have confidence that the number that we presented to town meeting was correct, and that's why they went ahead and changed it back to the number that got voted.
I'm just disappointed that we went through the whole process and the timing of things
Yep.
and how everything's prepared, and you want to provide the correct information to the townspeople, especially those that show up at town meeting. And after all that, and there's checks and double checks, and
Yeah.
these errors just should not happen.
Yeah.
And, I think taking a recess at town meeting, we looked once again at the front of the room as though we're putting this $50+ million budget
Yeah.
together at the last minute, and it looks unprofessional.
What the process that we do is, I prepare the motions, and I submit them to the finance department to be reviewed and verified. So it's not as though I'm producing the motions in a vacuum. What I did was I took, if you look at the budget, and you look at the front, I believe it was page 5, which presented the summary, it had a number of $50,269,185 in there. And that was, typically that number matches with the budget detail in the back. When I put the motion together for town meeting, I used that $50,269,000 number. But just intuitively, when I looked at it before town meeting, it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense just intuition-wise, Sean. I can't really point to anything in terms of why, but intuitively, it didn't make sense to me. But that number had been submitted to the finance department the week before, and they in fact verified that it was correct. Just intuitively, I sensed that it was wrong, and it turned out that my gut was right.
I think part of the issue is that, you know, the whole omnibus article included debt service.
Sure.
And we had to split it off to vote debt service separately, and that meant to separate the two numbers.
Understood.
And in the process, I mean, it shouldn't happen, but it's okay with Department of Revenue.
Right.
All we do is readjust that number. We actually voted a number bigger than
Yep.
we wanted to. Michael,
So you see, when we go in October town meeting, we revote the number.
just that number, the
And
total.
and so it's just a simple, you stand up in front, somebody's gonna give a presentation to the public and explain this, okay? And,
Me,
okay, so there's not much more than just that, right?
yeah.
There's no penalties, there's
Okay,
no
that's-
issues at this
all right.
point.
Thank you.
The trick is,
DOR is aware of it.
That's what I was worried
Yeah.
about.
we needed to have resolved before we set the tax rate. That's really the timeframe involved. But nevertheless, it's an embarrassment, and I apologize for the fact that my staff was unable to pin down that number and nail down that number for town meeting.
Well, it certainly doesn't make sense, not with the amount of time that the town people have given us by moving town meeting from April to June. It certainly doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm sure you're gonna get that one figured out.
I am. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Next,
Next. As you know, the DPW union has voted to affiliate with Teamsters Local 25, and there was an election which took place down at the DPW garage on June 3rd. The election was run by the Division of Labor Relations. We have received a certification of the vote, and so that is the new group that is affiliated with our DPW union. As you know, we have a contract to negotiate now that the election is completed and the certification is received. I would expect that we'll commence negotiations forthwith, very soon. So it's just an
are
information.
they gonna have the same representative as the police?
Unknown,
Unknown.
unknown.
It seemed to me if they did, we'd save a lot of grief
Oh, I'm counting.
because of, well, I mean, because of the history.
I know at one of our bargaining sessions, he had mentioned that he'd be seeing us again soon, so. Not guaranteeing, but I got the impression that Mr. Murray would still have contact or work through him on the DPW as well.
Yeah, there were a couple of representatives that were present at the election. It's kind of interesting that it's an informal election, but both management and labor have an opportunity to have one representative present, witness the election. And I was there, I was present. And it was a friendly election, but nevertheless, at the end, the local 25 was elected. You'll recall in the past, the DPW was represented by their own council. So this is the first time that they've gone to a group that's been affiliated with Teamsters, which is also with the police.
Greg, you mentioned you're gonna start the process of negotiating that contract. Do you have a schedule in place?
We just received a copy of the certification in the mail today.
Are you gonna use the same format we've used in the fire and the police? That style, that format, the team format that we've used?
I think it makes some sense. I think it's proven to be successful,
Okay.
and I think it certainly lends itself to this situation to use it, yes.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Yule?
Yeah, I'm sorry, do you have one more item to go?
No, please do.
Okay, because actually, I just wanted to reach back to our last meeting, and I don't recall us really talking about the TA's report, and I had a question on one item, and I thought, hopefully it's okay that I can ask a question. I don't recall, at the last
What are
meeting.
what are you referring to?
The last TA's report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't finished this
The
one.
only, yeah, okay, why don't you finish,
Let's finish this.
yeah, finish this one, I'm sorry.
Next on my list is the process for filling the vacancy of fire captain. I have received the civil service promotional list. It contains the name of eligible candidates. I met with Acting Chief Warnock. We'll select a captain within the next few weeks. I'm also intent on filling the deputy fire chief position in an acting capacity, and that position will be filled from within the rank of fire captain. As a ancillary note to that, the fire union did file a grievance with me requesting the appointment of an acting deputy chief, and also the scheduling of a promotional examination. The grievance will be resolved once the hiring process gets underway, so I don't expect that there'll be any formal action that's taken on it.
On the replacement of the fire chief, that's going to be an assessment.
It is going to be an assessment.
Where do we
We've already,
stand with getting that in place?
we have to request permission of HRD. We've sent in a request to them. We have to sign what's called the delegation agreement. I'm in receipt of that delegation agreement. I'll review it, sign it, send it off to HRD. They'll then stamp it and say it's okay, and then we'll proceed with hiring a consultant to run an assessment center.
So is the process in their court at the moment, or ours?
No, the process is fairly simple. It's just paperwork at this point. Once they say that they agree to it, then we'll have to go out and hire a consultant.
That's what I meant, though, is, are they waiting on us, or are we waiting on them at this very moment?
No, I have the delegation agreement. I need to read it, though.
So the ball's in our court.
Yeah.
Next step is us.
Yeah.
Mr.
So just
Delaney.
continuing down the chain of command here, we also have a firefighter position that's vacant, or will
Right.
be vacant. So is there a process started in order to fill that particular
Yeah,
position?
I've had some conversations with the acting fire chief relative to that. And there are perhaps some additional changes in the department that may be forthcoming, and so we're well aware of the fact that there is a position that does need to be filled, and we will be making a requisition for that vacant position. But I do need to work through some issues with the fire chief before that happens.
Thinking ahead positively, Greg, assuming that we will get ratification of the contract with the fire union, what are your thoughts in terms of moving forward with the ALS? Do we go back and reactivate the committee and start to work out some of the details and timing? Because I don't think we can just implement it the way it was originally proposed.
It has to be adjusted.
So there's some adjustments.
Wholeheartedly agree, and that's part of the reason why I gave a little bit of an elusive answer to Selectman Delaney's question, because the question is how many, there's one vacancy for a firefighter that would be created, one permanent vacancy, but there's some merit to perhaps adding 2 people at this time to allow us to begin implementation of the ALS service, and so that's my thought.
But you can always add a second. I don't know why you wouldn't start with the hole that we have.
Right.
And
Just-
fill that.
Just timing,
Well-
just timing.
What else, is there something you can't discuss in open session?
No,
I
I just
understand
had-
that, but you have the hole, let's fill it. Otherwise, it's additional overtime that's unnecessarily spent on that hole. So let's get it filled, would
Right,
be
well,
my
there's
position.
no overtime right now, because the position's not being filled. There's no hole at this time.
So they're running a shift with, no, but there will be, once you fill
The
The acting
deputy,
deputy, once
Right.
everything moves up, so
Yeah.
what, and we know the process doesn't happen overnight. So my suggestion is to start that process of filling that one firefighter position, and if we then choose to fill or
Sure.
add a second, we can do so.
Sure. It's a good point. It's a good point.
yeah, we don't need to wait to
We don't need to wait.
get the,
We know we need the one. We can always add the second.
Good point. Thank you. That completes my report. Thank you.
okay.
Well, is that what you're going to do, or
Is that what I'm going to do? That's what my intention is, sir,
what is your intention?
to fill
I'm
that
not clear.
position.
Okay, and when do you envision starting?
As soon as possible, sir.
You do understand the process is getting somebody that's qualified off the list. Making
Right,
the
but I
selection.
would have hoped that had started already,
Well, we
but
don't-
apparently it hasn't, because we're
I
waiting to see whether we need two.
No, sir. I committed to filling the position after town meeting. Town meeting was completed 1 week ago. I would suggest that, I request that you please be patient and allow the process to proceed. It's not like a period of weeks or months has passed since I committed to the board that I would fill the position after town meeting. Thank you.
Next, Michael?
Quick question on it, because I know this is gonna come up, Greg.
Sure.
I'm just gonna ask a question. So when we finally fill the position of the deputy, whether it's acting or not,
Well, it has to be acting right now.
right?
yeah.
It's gonna be an acting position. The old Chief Harris's vehicle, is that gonna be reallocated now to the deputy chief? Because I don't want that to come up in another grievance, because we don't have the right vehicles and stuff for them to do their job.
Oh, it's kind of interesting that if you read the fire contract, there's lengthy terminology about the deputy fire chief having a vehicle.
And that's why I'm bringing it up, because I read it the
So
other day.
We'll certainly comply with what the agreement says that we have to have, whether they receive the newer vehicle or the older vehicle. That's really not an issue.
But we still have the Chief Harris's vehicle,
We
right?
certainly have a
We can
vehicle.
just, okay,
He,
good.
he didn't retire and get the vehicle.
It
wasn't a parting gift?
I just want to make sure, because I read the contract, and I said, oh, this is great, this one's gonna come around and get us. So, all right, thank you.
Thank
The
you very much.
the number of vehicles haven't changed.
Unexpected penny.
Just want to make sure it wasn't reallocated somewhere else. Then we find ourselves without a vehicle for our deputy, and then we're gonna have another grievance, so. Trying to save Allison some work over there.
Well, that's mighty thoughtful of you.
I'm a nice guy.
Is that it now? Greg, on your report?
Yes, other than Selectman Yule's question.
Okay, Mr. Yule,
Yes, my question goes back to the July 6th regular session, where in your report, on the Route 62 culvert, I noticed that it said that MEMA has tentatively awarded the $480,000, and I wasn't sure what tentatively meant, except that it's provisionally. So could we lose that money if we don't act within a certain period of time?
I thought Dick answered the question that night.
Talking about the culvert in Wilmington, Selectman Yule?
Yes, yes.
That money is received
Done.
Oh, we have that
and
money.
committed.
Because, I mean,
Mentioned that the other
the way I'm reading this is that the agency has awarded, tentatively awarded, so.
Months ago.
Okay, okay.
Months ago. So we have that money
So we have that money.
nailed down, yes.
Yeah, I
Thank
thought
you.
Mr. Carnavelli actually mentioned that.
I think the only thing that was still up in the air, unless I missed it, was whether or not the road was gonna be closed and they were gonna drop a bridge in, or whether they were gonna
I remember
build a
that.
bypass and keep the road open while they constructed the new bridge over the culvert.
Thank you.
Hey, 7:30, look at that.
7:30, Mr. Hingston, I saw him arrive.
Mind? Mind if I pull up to my usual seat up there?
Not at all. Help yourself.
Hi, Dick.
Surprised they're not gonna get my name up here.
Welcome.
Would you like me to jump right in, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just thank you for letting me do the audit again. I appreciate it. And as usual, feel free to ask any questions or interrupt. I like these as a conversation better than a presentation, so I don't mind being interrupted at all. Give me that. I'm gonna start with the management letter. The town is required to report its capital assets on the financial statement. Joe Tassone maintains a capital asset spreadsheet that details all the assets of the town, and it's a supporting documentation for the numbers on the statement of net assets. At the end of the year, Joe reviews his expenditure accounts and adds any assets that he sees that he thinks should be added to the fixed asset schedule. The schedule has depreciation and departments, and it clearly identifies each asset. In order to accommodate the process of getting the capital assets correct, he sends out a departmental listing to every department head of their assets with the intent that they review it and add it, let him know of any deletions or additions that he missed when he put on it. In the past 2 years, there's been audit adjustments, prior period audit adjustments required. And I think because the schedules weren't thoroughly reviewed by the department heads. They caught them in the next year, an asset that should have been deleted or something that should have been added. And I kind of think it's because they didn't really know the importance of the fixed asset schedule. So I just wanted to put a comment in to impress upon them how important it is. These numbers are going right from that fixed asset schedule right into the statement of net assets, so it's a financial statement number. It's kind of a new thing for the departments, it's in the last 5 or 6 years. Before that, they never reported fixed assets. And sometimes I think they might think it's outside of their realm. But I think that it's a good, strong internal control to send it out to each department and have them review it, and I just hope they just
Can you define what the state considers to be a fixed asset?
Well, the state, when the GASB 34 first came around, that's when capital assets, and I think it was about 2003. And they issued a manual, and depending on the size of your government was the threshold. And they recommended for your size that any asset individually worth $5,000 be capitalized. Under that, they said that it doesn't require capitalization.
We should remember that when we meet with the finance committee on there.
Yeah, I think it has a different connotation from what your capital committee says.
Right, but I think that that's something that...
Yeah.
So that means if they buy a copier that's over $5,000, that would be
That would
capital?
be capitalized, yes, and
Interesting.
appreciated.
Appreciated, right?
The reason that the state came up with a threshold, like, we have some towns that are bigger, and there's 10,000, some cities that are 15. And what you're doing is you're kind of walking a fence. You don't want to have to, every time a computer or a printer gets used after a year or two, to have to update the fixed asset schedule and remove it and keep replacing it. So you're walking down the fence saying, we want to keep it so we can still get a clean opinion in our audit, but not have to kill ourselves and make ourselves a fixed asset, machine. Everybody has to just concern himself. And so that's what the state determined would be a good threshold for your size government.
So if we spent on replacing the light fixtures in this building over $5,000, it would be an add to the asset value of this building.
Yes, yeah. And you have to look what certain things, whether it's repair or an improvement. An improvement would be capitalized.
A repair wouldn't be.
Right. Yeah. So we just hope that the departments can just give it a little more thorough review in the next time the process comes around. The next comment has to do with the bond anticipation notes. At the annual and special town meetings, the town authorizes the issuance of debt for capital projects or capital outlays. Usually the town will issue a short-term instrument during the year, waiting till they do a bond. You don't issue a long-term debt even every year. So as the projects come up, if a project's going to start in September, Mary Ann might issue a bond anticipation note in September, and if another project comes up later, she'll issue it later. She does that so that she's saving interest instead of issuing everything in September and not spending it until May or June. If expenditures are made against one of those authorized projects and you don't do an issue a short-term debt or a bond, then it can negatively impact your free cash. And in 2010, you spent some water project money and didn't issue the debt until after 2010. So it took what was already a negative free cash in your water fund and it put it into a bigger deficit. So I think it's just important for Joe and for Mary Ann to review their capital project balances throughout the year, particularly at year end. And I think it would be a big plus if the project managers did cash flow projections, so that it would give them a heads up, so they kind of know when their project is going to, how much funding they're going to be needing for their project. That helps especially because you could look at a balance on May 20th, and there could be plenty of money in the capital project, and then all the expenditures come in June, and you're left scrambling to try to go and do a loan and before the fiscal year ends, or your free cash gets hurt. So the cash flow projections really are a good plus on that side too.
That makes very good sense.
Have these issues already been addressed with the finance department?
Yes, they've been tough. I think in the management letter they put in.
You flagged specifically water.
Yeah, it was water.
Did you find it in any other areas? Or
No,
just,
they had
just-
the
it
debt was
just water?
issued on the general capital projects. I think it was like three water projects.
Water being an enterprise, then it's attached to the enterprise?
Right, it affects the water free cash,
Only-
not the
okay,
general fund
okay.
free cash, yeah. Yeah, you dodged a bullet.
Yeah, right.
The next comment is Governmental Accounting Standards Board number 54. I think when I started doing government audits, they were at Government Auditing Standards Board Statement number 3, so, and I think you were there.
Yeah, I was probably there.
So it's a news reporting statement, and it becomes effective in fiscal year 2011. The objective is to more clearly define and report your components of fund balance based on the strength of the constraints. And by that I mean, in your special revenue funds, on your financial statements, it says fund balance reserves, special revenue funds. But within that special revenue funds, there's all kinds of different levels of restrictions. You have grants that are very restrictive, and then you have some that have enabling legislation that are restricted but not as much. And then you have the stabilization fund, which has basically no restrictions, and some other revolving type funds that aren't as restricted as grants. So there's like 5 categories now instead of 1, and you'll be able to look at it. And one of the ones is if there's a restriction that you place on it, but the Board of Selectmen, that you can remove, then that's a very low-level restriction because you can remove it. So there's 5 levels of restrictions that are going to be reported.
And how are they
now.
ranked, non-expendable
Yeah,
is the highest
it's right in that
rank,
order,
okay.
that hierarchy.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So the unassigned is in fact, in the future, your stabilization fund, which statutorily was considered a trust fund, is reported as a special revenue fund now, is going to be reported in the general fund in the future, which I think is the right place to report it, because if somebody's not real familiar with your financial statements, you could have $1 million in your stabilization fund, and it's showing up in the special revenue fund, and it's just as good in the Moody's eyes as free cash is, and the unreserved fund balance, because it can be used for the same thing that free cash can be used for, pretty much. So it will be unrestricted and unassigned in the future and in the general fund, according to the new standards. That's really it on the management letter. I have a couple of things I'd just like to mention. One about the munis conversion. I think that the town as a whole did a nice job on that. There's no significant lingering problems. I've been around a lot of conversions. Some of them went great, some of them went terrible. But this one, I think, as a team, your whole team did a nice job to get you to this point without any lingering problems. Your reports, you can get reports for anything you want now, and pretty meaningful. I think you still have to try. I don't know if last time I was here, you hadn't fully implemented the collectors package yet. I know you had
I think we had funded
Bought.
that.
You bought it, but you hadn't implemented it?
Still not implemented.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
'cause
will-
you made that
Yes.
recommendation.
Yeah, I made
in the
that
report.
last year, so.
There are, you know, from my perspective, there's still, beyond that, there's still some additional things we need to do. And we also need to improve the access to data in the form of simple reports that managers can look at easily. Evidently, there's
Well, that's one of the things about Munis, is that it's a high-end user system. It's not an easy system to use. I mean, it's a great system. It's probably the best software, municipal software out there, but it's a high-end user software. It's not an easy report writer. In fact, a lot of times they suggest that you use other softwares to write reports. But it's a great software, and you know, there's something called Query in it, and it's something you can set up criteria and save it, kind of like you save an Excel
sure.
file.
Yeah.
And so that makes it, once people start learning that and using that, departments, you could set those up for the different departments, so they could just go into Query and load up a set of criteria for themselves and print out reports. But a lot of times, other people have to do that for the non-financial users.
That was the collector's module you had recommended last time?
Yeah, that's what I recommended last time.
And we own it at this point.
Yeah, I thought that you did, but, and then, one of the things I, I said to a town that I do, and they were, this is when they were new Munis users, I said to them, so what do you do when the receivables don't reconcile, the collector's outstanding list to the ledger? And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, if it doesn't reconcile, what do you do? And they said, we don't know, it hasn't happened yet. So, that's a nice compliment to the system, so that'll be the.
Well, we have, we're in the process of reactivating, re-energizing the IT committee.
Yeah.
To help deal with not only the Munis issue, but a number of IT issues that we have that we want to, take the next step forward.
Yeah.
We've come a long way in
Yeah.
the past 10 years, but we got a long way to go.
And the other thing is, in my opinion, the big three, cash, accounts receivable, and debt, they're still being reconciled every month, so I'll just make sure to let you know that. As far as the financial goes, I can go into as much detail as you want, but I'll just give you my brief overview and let you.
Start with the overview.
Okay, and then you can ask me anything else. The opinion on page 1 is clean, it's a clean opinion. Anytime you look at an audit report, if you go to paragraph 3 and it says, in my opinion, in our opinion, the financial statements, well, then you're in good shape, because if it's in paragraph 4, then that means there's a qualification above it. So that's what the Moody's and the lenders do. They look at paragraph 3, and they know what the rest of it's gonna say. It's all what we're doing, what's standard. You also have 2 other reports we issue in the back on page 50 and 52. One is on internal control and compliance with laws and regulations, and that was a clean report. And we have to do one on internal control and compliance over federal grants. And there was one finding on that. If someone works solely and exclusively on a grant, then they have to file something called a payroll certification twice a year that certifies that that's all they worked on. They didn't work on the general fund, or they didn't work on a state grant. They worked on this federal grant, and those weren't filed. It was like auditors have a way of finding things, and every other grant we looked at, they showed us they were, but the 2 we tested, they did file certifications with every other grant. The 2 we tested, they weren't. So afterwards they said, well, but we did do them here, but the wrong ones.
Who's responsible?
For that particular one, those were.
No, not, who's, in a grant, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a grant to Public Works, it could be a grant to Finance, it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for filing that documentation?
Well,
Does it go back through Finance?
well, in this
Or
you mean,
or is it the responsibility of the department head that the grant has been granted to?
to make sure those payroll certifications have been filed in that
Yeah.
instance? Yeah, I would say it was the department head that's the responsible. In this instance, it was a special education grant, and it was a special education coordinator that should have them signed. In fact, could have been the one that signed them, because it doesn't have to be the employee, it has to be the employee or someone knowledgeable about the work that they, a supervisor knowledgeable about the person's work for the period, so.
Did it not get done because of just lack of awareness that it had to be done?
That's exactly what it was.
So it's more of a training
Yeah,
issue than
it was a
anything.
training issue, yeah. Because it was actually one of the new, the ARA grants, you know, the newer grants, so. And I just wanted to, if you could just open to page 10 if you have it. If you don't, I can just tell you the numbers.
No, we haven't.
Okay. On page 10, this is your statement of net assets. And get there. The second to the bottom number on the left is your unrestricted net asset of your governmental fund, and it's a negative $3 million. That is, in its entirety, is in a deficit because of the other post-employment benefits liability. And that's something that, which is $5,238,000 that we had to report. The total liability, I believe, is about $37 million, and it's getting phased in over a 30-year period. It's not divided, the 37 divided by 30, because there's an interest calculation and present value that they calculate every year. So over a period of time, this liability will continue to grow and put you into a deficit. I know in the last, we mentioned doing some, you accepted the legislation for the post-employment benefit trust fund.
Mm-hmm.
It just, in my opinion, if you could do something, to put something into it, it separates you. I have three types of communities. I have the small ones that their whole liability for the year is $100,000, and they fund it. You know, they look great, they're funding it. Most of them have regional schools, so they don't have a school to book. If the regional school tried to fund it, they wouldn't be able to support the assessment because they don't have a school system, they have a small one. I have other ones that are doing something, and thirds that are just ignoring it. And I just think that if you fit into the middle group, even if it's putting, some places are just putting whatever their Medicaid reimbursement is into it, and that's their plan, they're putting that into it. Others are just putting $20,000, $50,000, or $100,000 into it to just show that they are aware of it and that that they intend to do something in time, and it separates them because some people are doing nothing. So I just wanted to mention that. And the only other thing that I really wanted to jump on was on page 41, and that's your budget versus actual statement. And this is really good. If you look in the variance from final budget on the far right, that shows you how you did versus your budget on your revenues, and then the bottom part on your expenditures. And so you were to the good by $552,000. Moody's loves this stuff because this is what generates your free cash. When your revenues come in better than budget and your expenditures come in under budget, that's what generates free cash. And in these tough times, I've seen a lot of these where the revenue side are in a negative because they're pushing and pushing and pushing their estimated receipts because they don't have discipline enough to maintain cut budgets or do other things that are necessary to raise revenues, whatever it is. But I just wanted to mention that is really good to see a positive amount like that in the revenue side. That's really all I was going to go into, and if you have any other questions, I'd be glad to.
Mr. Prisco?
I just have two questions. Going back to the bond anticipation notes that you had made, you talked about the cash flow estimates that you want the department heads to make.
Yeah.
Is there a training that we need to give them, or do we have a format that they know how to go out and do this already?
Well,
is there something you can provide?
I would say that it would be at least a conversation. I'd be glad to sit down with department heads and talk to them about it, because it's more of a when are you going to spend the money kind of thing.
Right.
And if it's a big project, it's a more sophisticated cash flow thing, because if you have a $10 million school project,
Right.
then
He's got the training.
yeah, if you got a $10 million school project, you don't want to go out and borrow $7 million the first year if you're only going to spend $2 million just doing the engineering and design and everything. So
At the same time, you don't want to make commitments above what you have on hand. Otherwise, you might be able to pay the bill because you're using other
Right.
cash.
But your free
But
cash.
come
will
year
be-
end,
Right.
it doesn't, you know.
I just think we should do something about getting people trained, and if there's a format we should use and a process we should use, we should definitely be looking into it now.
Well, it would seem to me in the department budgets, and if they're tracking their expenditures with Munis, I don't know how grants and projects are identified within Munis, I imagine by account numbers. They should be able to do that now, provided they can get ample information out of the system.
Well, they can get ample information out of the system on what they spent, but we're looking at what are you gonna spend that's not in the system yet, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the
the
little
key.
thing that they'll have to know based on contracts, and they'll have to contact their contractor. If you've got a construction job going on, you have to work with you know, if they say, we're gonna finish this by December, then,
So this is also a conversation with the treasurer, because she may delay, you know, trying to get all of the bonding and even the bands done in specific timeframes, where
Right.
as we cross into the next year, could be hurting us, as you mentioned.
it's a judgment call in some ways for her, because she has to say, okay, there's issuance costs, so, and then there's the interest cost. Now, how much, if I borrow in September and then borrow again in October, because that's what the cash flow says, I mean, do the
Right.
issuance costs outweigh the interest costs? So you have to kind of, you know, weigh it, you have to weigh it and analyze it. You have to do some
Well,
financial.
it certainly means that she can't make a valid decision without knowing what the, let's call it the project manager
Right.
cash flow plan is gonna be on a
Right.
project.
Grants are usually not a problem, because you get them within the fiscal year or right after the fiscal year, and it doesn't affect your free cash. If you have a grant in a deficit and you get reimbursed right after that, the DOR does not hit, the DLS, Local Services now, does not hit your free cash for that.
Well, I definitely love the idea. I hope it just doesn't go sit in the shelf. I think it's a worthy idea. And then the last one I had was, in your report from last year,
Yeah.
you made some really good recommendations, and
Thank you.
the one that stuck out to me the most was your subject on internal controls over financial transactions. And
Yeah.
I know Joe's not here, and I was actually gonna ask him if he actually took some of your recommended ideas, and to me, I think that's some of the problem. And then you kind of tie this process into documenting those internal controls.
Yeah,
I think
I
it
don't
saves
know
us.
right now whether they have fully implemented it.
So when you do your audit, you don't go back and,
I usually do, I just don't remember right now off the top of my head. I think that some of the departments, like, they have like a work procedure schedule, but I'm not sure that they have a formal internal control.
yeah. I mean, I hope we didn't just throw this in a filing cabinet from last year, because there's some really good stuff in here, and I think it does kind of tie into that bond anticipation notes. That's all I have.
Dick, on page, I believe it's 27, you spell out a number of formal policies that the town doesn't
Yeah.
currently have. Have you provided samples of those, or could you
Yes,
provide
I
samples?
have. There's a samples on the treasurer's website. The
27?
Mass State Treasurer's.
I'm sorry, I
Their
think it's
page.
actually, I think I studied the wrong page.
I can see, because it's
I believe it's,
detailed notes on all funds.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the cash.
I have to find the page again, but it's where you reference no formal deposit policy,
Yeah,
no
that's
formal
on-
policy
isn't it
limits
on page
investment.
27?
Is it
No.
27?
At least on my book, it isn't.
Deposits, is a risk deposit, custodial credit risk, is there in the event of a bank failure?
Yes, it is on, it's under
Yeah,
27 under Roman numeral 3, detailed notes on all funds.
right. Okay, what is-
3D,
you-
you
Is
said?
that last year's
Three-
that you have, or do you have last year's out?
27, Michael?
I don't know, three
No, no,
A.
I'm there.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it
Uh,
starts, right. It
yeah.
is 27. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yes, the treasurer's, there's a sample, a couple of different samples on the treasurer's website. And I do have other samples that other towns have. Sometimes, in some instances, there's
Well, okay, I see.
there's some things that you don't really invest in. You don't have a very aggressive investment policy right here.
Right.
So trust funds are not aggressively invested in much in stocks and bonds. They're mostly in, I think it's MMDT and stuff, so there's not a real need for a huge investment policy. But the Mass Treasurer's website has them. I have a couple places that, one of my treasurers was a former comptroller of a bank, and his investment policy is, I wouldn't want to have to maintain it because it's very stringent and tough investment policy. But if Mary Ann doesn't get it on the website, I have 3 or 4 different.
It seems like there's some key areas where
Yep.
we're lacking any policy whatsoever, and would probably be beneficial to have. Also, you point out that there's a number of bond authorizations that have, over the years, that have not been issued
Yep.
and or rescinded. Do you have a recommendation as to what should happen with those?
Actually, yeah, I think that if, you know, if, I don't know what page,
I think that's on page,
34, I think. Oh,
sorry, I should have had it. Yes,
yeah, 34.
page 34, under E.
Yeah, you know, anything that's, this is kind of like having open credit cards. When Moody's looks at this, they say, not only this is what you have outstanding in debt, this is what you have for potential in outstanding for debt. So if there's something that is done and you're not going to use it anymore, it's just wise to rescind it.
We have done some, but this is.
Yeah, these are just going back to
surprisingly large.
2008.
It's nearly a $6 million figure when you
Yeah.
add them all up.
Yeah.
Now, I know that some of these projects have been done,
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say that,
as I go through this, I see projects and things here
Yeah, like the
that
turf field, we know. it's
that are done. Painting of the Flint Memorial Library, I know that that's done.
So maybe by
They're-
October
they're-
town meeting, we should be able to
Well,
rescind
this
a
was,
number of
This
these.
was
this
as
is
of
your
what date?
report, a year ending 2010.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And if there's any time that you see something in this and that you'd like to sit down for an hour or so and just go over some of the things, like any of the other post-employment benefits, I'd be glad to do that with you, so.
And so, speaking regarding that,
Yeah.
the most recent figure we have is 37 million, but that's as of July 1 of '07.
That was as of July 1 of '07, so you're due for another one,
Right.
as of the next audit should have another number. And what it does is, we will end up having, like, as it goes on, you end up having the last three actuarial valuations on your report. So what they're looking at is, they're looking at several things. Are you funding it? If you're not funding it, are you doing other things to bring it down by, you know, changing the percentages and of making sure everybody's on Medicare, that you know,
Done.
yeah, so if you changed the percentages since the last time you had an actuarial valuation, it will probably go down just because of that.
I think there is a mistake though in your report. You do reference June 30, 2009 for that bond authorizations, but I believe it is supposed to be 2010, because if you go back and look at last year's 2009, it is
What page is
completely
that?
different. It's on page 34 on this year's report. And what you referenced last year was the June 30th, 2009, which was a little over $11 million.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. So
Yeah,
I don't think
that
it's
is
wrong. I think, Bob, you mentioned that it was
Yeah.
last fiscal year, but it's not. It's actually this past.
Yeah, that was as of June 30th.
Yeah, so the date is
So,
probably
is
right.
In other words, these actually go back even 1 year.
Well, these were what was outstanding as of June 30th,
2010.
2010.
Okay.
Not
So the
2009.
date is wrong.
The
My
date
date
is
is
wrong, but
wrong.
the information is
The
correct.
information is correct, yeah.
So, you know, Mr. Delaney brings out a really good point, but last year, it was $11.5 million,
Yeah, so you issued a lot. Yeah.
so.
Didn't issue, just rescinded some?
Yeah, we,
Okay.
I'm not sure what we did.
Greg, let's make a
A lot of them
note
went out.
that,
Yeah.
Greg?
Yeah.
we rescinded a few, but a lot of them were actually
Let's
went out
make
to.
a note to
Haven't bought
maybe
it.
address some of rescinding these in October.
I think it might be important to get an up-to-date list in terms
Yeah.
of what the expenditures, so let me start there.
Yeah.
Actually, most of these have already been expended.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, Mary Ann has to do a statement of indebtedness that lists all of these. And so she will have that from, as of June 30th, 2011. And you have a really good lead bank, it's First Southwest, and they do an excellent job maintaining your debt schedules, and you can get reports from them anytime. They're really good.
Great. Michael?
As you aware, we're probably coming up at the, beginning of the next calendar year. Go out and look for financing for the schools. So do you have any recommendations that you want to give us as we go through that project? Have you been involved with such a project with other towns?
SBA projects? Yeah, I have been. I can tell you, one of the things that you have to be very careful about is, this is something you can really manage the debt on, because when you go out and borrow, if you have how much is the project at?
Let's say it's 80 million and we're gonna bond for the town's share 40. And that's just hypothetical,
Okay,
okay? But
well-
it's probably a ballpark number.
Right, well, you're gonna end up doing those bond anticipation notes, but you can minimize those by requesting timely reimbursements from the SBA. And so if you went out and did a $20 million bond anticipation note, spent $10 million, then when they get, and request a reimbursement quickly, then instead of just waiting until, your 20 million's gone and then requesting, then they'll pay you back that 10 million, so that the next time you go to roll it over, you'll already have $10 million of their money, so that you won't have to go out and borrow as much. You'll use that to pay down the ban, and so you could roll it over again at a lower amount. So I think timely requests for reimbursement are a big key to that. And again, I'll tell you, I've worked with First Southwest for a long time, and they're very good about telling you when to borrow, about discussing it. And they will come in and talk to you too about it, and about an $80 million bond, what they think that you should do about timing of it. And I've had times when they said, okay, I know your project's not done, but this is the time to issue the bond, because it's a good time right now, and we think the market's going to change, and they're very good about that. And I know they come in and talk to boards about that. So.
Great, thank
Any
you.
other
for
questions?
Oh, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Very
Dick.
good.
See you.
The easement. No, it's here.
Okay. Steve, we were waiting for you on the easement,
That doesn't surprise me.
because we need three signatures. So I'll entertain a motion, Mr. Prisco.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Selectmen execute the acceptance as voted under Article 25 at the June 6, 2011 town meeting, approving the cross easement access agreement with Linda M. Smith for municipal property located off Elm Street.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Prisco, it was seconded by
Second.
Mr. Yule. You have any more discussion, or we discussed enough of it at town meeting? I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The motion passes 3-2.
There you go, sir.
Cool.
Theo, is everybody here?
And I assume, who's
Is John?
he a notary?
You a notary?
I'll do it.
Allison, you're a notary too, right?
What the?
Sure.
Need to get you one of those.
Yeah. I think we can get enough sponsors. We maybe have some problems getting her through the Secretary of State, but.
I guess it goes over to Jeff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I take it you weren't here to notarize this today. You weren't prepared for
I
that.
can notarize it, you know, I'll come by in the morning and I'll have my seal, so I'll,
Well, we can have the town clerk do it.
huh?
We can have the town clerk do it, too.
Oh, so, you know, I can do it tonight.
I
if
think she
you
has to be
want,
present,
Oh, okay.
just to witness our
Yeah, right,
signature.
that's true.
Those signatures from the three that are signing.
When Greg comes back, we'll,
but- Okay.
oh, was it Greg? Somebody was getting their notary. Was it Greg?
Don't know that.
Okay, we'll resolve that issue later. With respect to the NORCAM agreement, I invited both the NORCAM here this evening and also the Cable Committee, because in our brief discussion at our meeting just before our town meeting, we approved the request of the NORCAM board to make a change in the original agreement, and we asked town council to draft up, prepare language. So we haven't signed anything yet, but I think Mr. Kouliopoulos called it to my attention after the meeting that the board was not happy with our accepting that, and I got a call from Mr. Dardino, who was instrumental in putting that agreement together back when he was on the board, concerned about the vote that we had taken. So I thought we'd give both sides an opportunity again to make the case, and if necessary, if the board feels that we should reconsider the vote that we took last Monday, then we're certainly prepared to take that under consideration. So, how do we want to start this? I guess since the NORCAM made a representation to us previously about why they want to change it, my understanding is that, first of all, their request conforms to state law in terms of it not being required for full audit. Two is the board had some concerns with it, and I think what we agreed to do was that we would change so that we could accept the report rather than a full audit, but we would require a full audit once every 5 years. So with that, who's representing the Cable Committee here? You want to come up and...
Ruth Kennedy is the chairman, but she was unavailable tonight, so she asked Ed Stroke to make the presentation.
That's fine.
I think I'm going to take the seating strategy. That's okay.
That's okay. You might want to just kind of...
If I can go over a little bit of history, basically we're the cable commission that more or less negotiates the contract with any new cable company in the town. And also once a year, we sit through a review of the NORCAM and report back to the selectmen of what they've done and they've met their goals. And what's important about that is it is the selectmen's only time to review what NORCAM is doing. Because of the type of situation they're in, once they pass that review, they are a separate entity that controls the money, that controls all that type of stuff as the year goes on. So as a committee, we sat through the review and then put in writing to them that we wanted them to do an audit because of the amount of money that was being processed and also money that they have in their bank account. And the reasons for doing that is that we feel that it would protect the town by having an audit done probably less than 5 years. But the idea is that it goes through, it will go through all the scenarios, and we're protected because of the money that's involved. This money is all submitted because of a surcharge put on everyone's cable's bill. So basically, the town is supporting this program, and we feel it's in the best interest of the town to have an accounting audit done so that, again, we know where the money's going and what's being done with it. And again, this has nothing to do with the people that we're dealing with today. It's really to protect us 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And the third thing was that when the contract was originally signed, in the contract, both parties signed that said they would do an audit on a yearly basis. So based on those three areas, we voted as a committee to recommend to the selectmen that they should require an audit and, on a yearly basis. In our meeting that we had, I know there was a discussion about what's the difference between a review and an audit. Phil Dardino's here. We've asked him to come, that he can explain the difference between the two. If that needs to be done, I think you all received what the difference is, or would you like to have Phil?
Phil sent 2 documents to me that I put into the Dropbox for the board members if you had a chance to look at it. I know I did that late this afternoon, so.
I think it'd be helpful, personally, I think it's helpful if Phil got up and explained the difference between the two.
I do have one question. Up to now, what has been done? Has a full audit been done each year or a report? Just so that we know where.
Just a review.
Just a review, okay. So this issue, this is the first time this issue has come up?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Phil, you want to?
It's not the first time it's come up, it's the first,
It's the first time it's been called to my attention. Phil, do you want to come up and explain the difference between the two?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask John a question with regard to his answer. Is there a reason why a review has been done versus an audit?
When we organized and were putting our things together, the subject came up as to what we were required to do. And we were advised, well, you don't really need an audit. You don't need a full audit. All you have to do is a report. And the board of directors voted to do a review. If that's all that was required, that's what we decided to do. It was $1,000 for the review, and it was $4,000 for full audit. And there were members that were adamant about, why do we have to spend the money? And that was the argument, and the board voted, and it was unanimous that they decided to go with a review.
So the request for an audit right now, this is the first time there's being
Yes.
a request for
It has
a full
not
audit,
come
if I
up
may, okay.
in the 3 years that we've been, doing this.
Okay.
It has never come up before.
All right,
Okay,
so
thank you.
I just heard 2 things, so I know that this issue hasn't come before the board since NORCAM was formed, but I think I heard the cable committee say that this issue has come up more than once. Is that correct? or
no,
not?
this is the first time
First
that
time, okay.
the first time that we've asked for it, and I think it was stimulated by the amount of money that was in place.
Okay, all right.
And may I rebuttal what he just mentioned? What we're recommending to the selectmen is exactly that they got information from people outside that we don't know who gave them the information. And I think the selectmen would be well protected to have that information audited. So right now, they have the ability to go outside people that we deal with on a townwide because they are a separate entity. So that's part of the reasons why we recommend it.
Okay, Phil, could you inform the board as to the difference between the two?
Hold on.
Jeff, let Phil.
I wasn't sure what he said when he said people outside. I don't know what that
Well,
means.
they just said they went to, they got a recommendation from someone which.
Answer with that question, actually. In your packet, you'll notice there's a copy of our minutes from August 27th, 2009. If you notice, under board members present, one of them is Mr. Kouliopoulos. Under business, it's highlighted, under new business, I should say. Jerry brought up the question of an audit versus a review. When we eventually get over $200,000, we need a full audit as state requires. Of course, the law reflects differently. Phil Dardino recommended Phil Pacino. His company does a lot on nonprofit organizations. As a 501c3, we are not obligated as of yet. However, we will be pretty soon. In our agreement with the town, we need to give an audited financial report for the last year. The review audit is about $1,000 versus an audit, which is $3,000. There is no need for an audit yet. Income tax forms must be accompanied with some kind of financial report. Discussion ensued. Now that our taxes are done, we can give the town some form of financial report to them. So actually, the 2 people that bring up this issue are the 2 people that caused this issue. That's all.
Can I just?
Can I speak? No, Phil, I asked Phil to come up and explain to the board the difference before we go any further. Phil, please.
Please.
Of course, I'm Phil Dardino, and I actually am not a member of the Cable Advisory Committee. I'm not a member of NORCAM. I do have a background here because I'm the gentleman as the selectman who wrote up the agreement with review by town council. I'm the individual who formed NORCAM. I organized NORCAM under the state law, and I'm the guy that was there at the beginning. Now, I do have to say that they were never told or this is not an issue, it is in the agreement. The agreement is really clear that an audit needs to be done. All right, and whether the Cable Advisory Committee ever told them, I told them every year, each and every year, personally, I told them they needed to have it. But and I'll answer all the questions with that regard too, but you asked me to talk about a compilation. I am a CPA, okay, and a CPA offers 3 levels of service, okay? And it's a great night today to talk about this because you just had the audit here, all right? And you're able to see why you have an audit. You don't have an audit. You don't have an audit because you don't trust the people. You have an audit because the organization is big enough that you need to know what's going on. But the 3 levels of services are a compilation, and a compilation really offers no assurance at all. All a compilation does is it takes the financial data provided by management, as a CPA would call it, or NERCAM, right, and it organizes it into a financial presentation. It really offers no opinion or no guidance. All it really tells you is that that there is that they give you a standard report that says that there's nothing materially in error. So in other words, if they looked and they saw this giant deduction for an item, then maybe they would ask. But otherwise than that, a compilation just takes the things and reorder it. Now, a review is a little more, but it's a fairly limited assurance. All a review really does is a review takes that same financial information and it looks at it to see whether there is anything in it that's unusual. It doesn't really, whether everything makes sense is the way I would put it. A review provides the limited assurances only that no material changes need to be made to the financial statements. So it makes no real assurances as to what's in the financial statements, what was the income, what was the deduction. It makes no assurance in that regard at all. In an audit, though, an audit is the highest level assurance, okay, and it offers an opinion. And the opinion is that in order to do an audit, all right, an auditor would actually contact, they do search and verification procedures. They contact the bank and they get independent verification of bank balance. They would contact customers, vendors, and get independent verifications of that. And in the end, they will tell you that there's a reasonable assurance. They'll give you a reasonable assurance that material errors or fraud, whether or not material errors or fraud have been detected. Now, it's not a guarantee that there is no fraud. That's not really what it is. But it says that there's an opinion that none was found. And it's a reasonable level of assurance. Never a guarantee, but it is certainly the kind of high-level assurance you need in something like this. Now, the problems here are, what's been mentioned has been the idea of what the Secretary of State requires. Well, what the Secretary of State requires is required of a public charity, all right? Public charities not only have the oversight by the Secretary of State, but they also have the oversight of the individuals who contribute to it. If you contribute to the Walk for Hunger, you know a little bit about it, you know what they're doing, you follow closely what they do. So there's really a lot of knowledge out there for these type of organizations. But an organization like this, all right, there's no one looking at this but the selectmen. You're the only one. And the information you have is only once a year now when you get it from these gentlemen here. The only argument, there's a lot of arguments for it. The part that's funny for me, and I have to say, the part that's funny for me is, I've said this all along, that this is in the best interest of NORCAM. It's not just in the best interest of the town of North Reading, it's in the best interest of NORCAM, because it assures the people of North Reading that NORCAM is using the funds appropriately, okay? These funds are all coming from the citizens of North Reading. They deserve to have that knowledge. You, on the other hand, I want to stress, I think that this gets confusing to people, because in government, it's a rather unique business. The money that belongs to the town of North Reading. All that money belongs to the town of North Reading, okay? But by law, it must be used to support local access. It can't be used in any other fashion,
all right? So typically what most towns do, this is nothing, we didn't invent this, this is really typical throughout most towns that have this, virtually every town, right? Because if you ran it, you would have to have an employee, you'd have to hire people, do staff, and so instead what you do is an organization is created, all right, and you contract with that organization to run that cable access, okay? But it really is the town's money, okay? And your oversight on that money is actually fairly limited. I mean, the only things you can do is you have the right to appoint liaisons as well as the school committee. I don't believe there's any liaison now unless it's a selectman, I don't know. But there's no school committee liaison right now. You have the right to pick one board member as a liaison, though. It's not a non-voting member. So you can't even have a voting member. The issue here for this is not that these people are not trustworthy. That's not why an audit's done. You just did an audit. It's not because you didn't trust the people here in North Reading. You did an audit for a lot of other reasons. You want to certify what's been done. But the big thing with NORCAM and that type of thing is that right now, since this is just in a short time since I did this and appointed these people, right? There's several new members, including, of course, a new president since I did it, all right? In 5 years, there may be 3, 4, 5 people on that board that the selectmen don't even know, because there's no requirement that you know who's on that board, except for these guys. So, to be honest with you, I don't even see a reason. I've only heard 2 arguments, all right, against it, and one would be the money, which it's $4,000, all right? I recommended Phil Pacino. They're right about that. I recommend Phil Pacino because I know him personally. Phil Pacino does a lot of charities audits, all right, a lot of them, and he's very sensitive to the idea that charities don't have a lot of money to spend. So his pricing is much more reasonable than many other CPAs and what they charge for an audit. So that's why I recommend Phil Pacino in the first place. But I told Phil Pacino, and I've told them every single year that they need an audit. All right, now, why they've decided not to do one, I'll tell you, why they decided not to do one, I don't know, but they need an audit. Now, the money is almost, to me, a silly thing, because they have a $230,000 budget. $3,000 in a $230,000 budget is a fairly small amount, okay? I just don't see any reason not to have it. And especially when you think of the level of insurance, the level of comfort that the people of North Reading is going to have, that you're going to have, and that they're going to have, like I say, it's not because you don't trust them. It's because you do an audit for lots of reasons. And I've taken the liberty to provide you with a package of material, including explanations as to why audits are done and things like that. So, but that's the 3 levels. The difference between a compilation is very little, very small, no assurance at all. A review is a slight amount of assurance. The difference between a review and an audit is gigantic, because an audit, they're actually looking at invoices, they're looking at materials, they're contacting the banks, they're contacting all these people. In a review, they're really just looking at the financial statements and asking us some questions. So, any questions for me?
Sean?
Not really a question, but, well, not directly to you, Phil, but is there any dispute that the language in the agreement between NORCAM and the town of North Reading asks for something or requires something other than an audit? Is there any dispute there?
I think the language-
Everyone's in agreement that it calls for an audit?
That's why they came in and asked us to change.
Okay, I had stepped out, I was in and out, I just wanted to make sure last week.
Last meeting.
Town council,
Yeah, but I was in and out of that meeting.
Oh,
so-
the specific language is advised by town council.
For the last 2 or 3 years, though, CAC has allowed them to just provide a review. And the reason now you're asking for the audit and to be in compliance with the contract is because their revenues have increased. Am I clear on why now?
Well, one of the reasons, and seeing in that short period of time how much they increased, trying to look forward, saying, geez, we better get something in place
Okay.
to protect you.
I just want to make
from
sure I
that.
was on the same page.
Yeah, I've told them every year they need an audit. I don't want to be,
Oh, I understand you have, Phil, but I was
Yeah.
wondering what CAC had to say.
Thank you, Phil. That was a good
Thank you
explanation.
very much for allowing me to speak.
So, board members, Michael?
I noticed your end of the year is calendar year, right? You don't follow in line with what we do as a town, right?
Correct.
Then who sets their budgets?
They do.
They
Their
set their own
board, yeah.
budgets.
The agreement, right, set a cable committee at arm's length. The only control that the Board of Selectmen has over the current cable committee is in that agreement. And the purpose of the agreement was such that if they failed to perform per what's stated in the agreement, we could pull the agreement and, you know.
There's a process
Through
in place
cable
that you
company,
could
right,
change the
right.
cable company, but it's based if they go outside that
And
agreement.
The cable committee, right, their role is not managing NORCAM at all. Their role is to deal with the town's relationship with the cable providers, the licenses with Verizon, Comcast, and, you know, negotiate and work for the benefit of the
Right.
town. And then, obviously, the fee that is agreed to in the contract, that's tacked on everybody's bill that flows directly to NORCAM.
Okay, and
So
and
the
who
issue-
sets that? Who sets the Cable Commission's charter?
I think you,
Yeah, that was set by
The
us.
selectmen.
That's been in place for years.
the only other thing we do report once a year,
Yeah.
what, the
Right.
review that they give us.
Are you asking with the money, who sets the money? coming
No.
in?
No, I don't think so.
I'm just, rules and responsibilities,
No.
like Bob just mentioned that, and I didn't know this, thank you for explaining that, NORCAM, they're not responsible for NORCAM, right? You just explained.
NORCAM has its own board of directors, that's, but they do review what NORCAM is doing and provide us feedback associated with, like, living up to the agreement.
Okay,
So once a year, you look at the agreement, are they in line with? If they are, they have another year,
and then how often do you meet with them, and
once a year,
just once a year, that's it?
Right. Per the contract,
Per the
per the agreement.
agreement that we put in place, that
Right.
this board did, okay. Okay.
And Mr. Dardino, when he was on the board, was the gentleman that worked with the committee in the initial forming of the agreement, and then the initial forming of the original board of NORCAM.
Yeah, this is a lot more money when I read through this stuff that I thought. When we met the other night, we kinda went through it quickly. I thought we were talking about
So,
$40,000,
the way
$50,000.
the way
This is
NORCAM-
significantly more than I thought.
NORCAM essentially is a public company, it's a nonprofit.
Nonprofit, okay.
And they have membership. You know, people that pay dues and become members. And what's the membership count right now, Rob?
About 45 members, sir.
45. And those members then vote annually, I assume, on Board of Directors.
Correct.
And also the Board of Directors has to file, or you file, reports related to.
Correct. I just feel weird shouting from the crowd, so.
So they're a separate entity at arm's length, which is what the board wanted back then.
There's also language in the agreement for told us
Absolutely.
harmless.
As far as the chair goes, he hasn't changed his mind.
Okay, I just curious what you thought.
Mr. Chair?
No, I think they're doing a very good job. And,
Oh, thank you.
You know, they've
Thank you.
grown, and I haven't heard any complaints, short of the Verizon Comcast connection issue, which is a little bit out of your control, but I know you've been working at it.
Actually, it's been completed, the work's been done, the live signal's been much more improved, actually. I have had feedback from viewers, and they say it's much better, the audio's clearer. There was a variety of issues where I did have to call in both Verizon and Comcast, and it was kind of an undertaking to get them all in there, but yes.
So, basically, a week ago, when, at our board meeting, which is a very short meeting, we got input and we made a decision based on perhaps incomplete information, or not having some of the information and concerns raised by the cable committee and Mr. Dardino. So,
Jeff Fetish.
Jeffrey.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just a couple questions. In the contract, it does say that there should be an audited fiscal report annually, and should be completed by March 31st, I believe. Now, was there any reasoning behind the CAC to forego that step? And was that ever discussed with or advised, was the Board of Selectmen advised accordingly?
No, I think it was a matter of, we weren't dealing with the exact working of the agreement. We were more or less reporting back what they had done over the past year. we didn't get into, did you do an audit and those types of things. When we saw the amount of money that was involved and we asked the question and then dug into it, we realized that an audit wasn't being performed.
May I say something, if that's okay? The answer is, if you look at the
So you
document.
can grab the mic, should be heard.
If you look at the document, the Cable Advisory Committee's role is a technical review. It's not a fiscal review. So they're not responsible. That was, I think, the early going. I'm kind of, that was the early going with the Cable Advisory Committees. What was their role? And their role in the agreement says that they're doing a technical review as opposed to a fiscal review. Okay? So I think that they felt that in some of the early years, they felt that this was an independent, something separate. You know, and it's only now that it's been a number of years that they haven't done it, that the Cable Advisory Committee has decided to push that up as a reason.
Are you saying that their request for an audit is not really in their charge? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's in the
In the
document.
agreement,
The
Jeffrey.
fiscal, yeah, I understand that there's two types of reviews that have to be done. One is an audit and one's a fiscal review.
Right, and the
I
fiscal.
thought you were just saying that we're concerned about the, I guess, item 2.
So let me answer it.
Item
Please.
3.1 is what they were concerned about.
Our position is to notify you if we find something, what they've done and what they're not done, and we're notifying you that an audit wasn't being done. And then and it's up to you to decide what you want to do. So that's how we looked at it.
Okay.
They had that amount of money, and there wasn't an audit being done.
Right.
Selectmen, there wasn't an audit being done.
But it wasn't being done because I think if I read the minutes correctly, it was requested, I don't know what word is requested, but it was decided that a review was okay up until this point
By the Board of Directors.
by the Board of Directors, not by the CAC?
No.
It should be noted that both Phil and Theo were both members of the CAC, and Theo was also on our Board of Directors, so he could have easily clarified that for us.
All right, we're not here to fight over it.
No, I'm just clarifying,
Just looking
just a
for
point of clarity,
clarification.
point of clarity, that's
But
all.
isn't, if I may, really, we're only asking, there's only one question here. Whether to have an audit and how often.
Well,
That's two. Sorry.
as of last Monday night, the board voted to change the language in the agreement to require an audit, to accept a report and to require an audit once every 5 years. That's based on the information that we had a week ago Monday. So I'm going to ask the board at this point, have we heard enough to make us want to reconsider the decision that we made or not? Do we want to reconsider it with a modification to change the period of time between the audit from 5 years to 3 years or 2 years or whatever, right? Or just leave it the way it is, or go back to the original agreement? We need to make a decision.
I would suggest, I think the 5-year, at this point, I don't believe the annual audit is necessary. However, I think the 5-year time period is much too long of a time period to go between audits. I would suggest that every 3 years, NORCAM should be required to do an audit, and there shouldn't be a time period greater than that. That would be my proposal, to modify the decision of the board last week.
Jeffrey?
Just to work off of Sean, I was thinking more of every other year, having a report. I mean, the numbers they're good numbers. I mean, they're pretty big, but, and they may grow, for all we know. And this money does belong to the town, but it's designed for cable access, and I think every other year would do the trick.
I just have a question, Robert,
Sure.
in relation to cash on hand and cash equivalents. And at what point, how much are you anticipating accumulating? And I mean, at some point, your nonprofit status might come into question here, but.
Right. At what
You know, as
point?
far as investments and as far as investment of the cash, I mean, the cash is going to grow significantly over the next few years.
Correct.
I mean, whereby you may allow you to hire some additional staff and.
Absolutely. I mean, we're already in the process of. So we've already hired our gentleman back there, Bob. He's one of our meeting coverage. We also had Phil, who was here earlier helping.
What's the game plan in relation to staffing levels in order to, I mean, you're going to have a budget of approximately $225,000.
Right. I'd like to turn my part-timers into full-timers. I mean, I could really use the help.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to have to transition to high def at some point, and that's not cheap even to this date. And as far as I know, from what I've heard in conversation amongst other access centers, because I do talk with other access centers, and to give you a matter of perspective, there are access centers that have probably $1 million plus in the bank. There are access centers that probably have $600,000, $700,000 every year annually. So, well, actually, some of them even millions. So that's fine. We have nothing to hide on that note. Going back to answer your question, yes, we'd like to increase our staff to full-time, possibly even hire a third full-time person. The transition to high definition is going to cost us a lot of money, and it may be something where we have to provide that equipment to transmit and receive at the head end in South Lawrence or at Verizon's headquarters. That's going to be a considerable expense. When we say $3,000 isn't much, your new microphones, your audio snake, your new mic mixers, that came out to about $3,000. You know, to move from the high school to the Damon Tavern, just to have the fiber run that quarter of a mile was 20 grand. So it's not really, yeah, we have a lot of money, but really, it's a lot of money to pay for very expensive things. And that's just the fact. That's just the going rate of things, whether you have to pay a contractor to come out and do those lines or have the cable company subcontract someone to do it. And they're playing more capital projects that we could work on. I mean, one of them which you'll see in the report is that we do plan on upgrading this system here with actually robotic cameras. And if you look in the equipment budget, we've already put a line item in for those. So, and that's just to purchase, not to install. I mean, an install is probably about $75 to $150 an hour. And then whatever other fees are incurred, you know, for cabling and whatnot, if they have to hire anyone else, so.
So is this your business plan that you have in here? Is that?
There's a
You have a
variety of
business plan?
documents in there, yes. But one of them is, if you notice in the report, we do have a future plans. You'll also see that I do have an annual budget.
I saw
And you'll also see the equipment budget of what we have to purchase, so, yeah. We do plan on expanding staff, and we try to keep our membership rates low, so.
Yeah, just looking at your financial, functional expenses
Mhm.
in 2010, it was in total $139,000, of which $29,000 is depreciation, so that's really cash add back. Correct, so your real actual expenses, cash flow wise, is about $110,000.
Which
Page
document?
6,
Of the 2010 or 2000?
2010.
Yep. Okay. Page
2010,
6.
2009, page 6.
Yep.
If I'm looking at your functional expenses, it's called, statement of functional expenses,
Mhm.
bottom right, 139,000,
Yep.
of which 29,300 is depreciation, so obviously, yeah, that's cash back, that's cash in your pocket. That's depreciation of equipment, and you're gonna
Right.
end up spending it, but that's a paper transaction, that's not actual cash out of your pocket.
Right, exactly.
So your
exactly.
actual expenses were about $110,000.
Yeah,
That makes sense to you?
yeah, just about.
No, and you had, took in 225,000, was it, or 225 plus the capital funding, franchise fees, capital funding. So again, my question is back to what I asked initially in relation to, you know, your money's starting to accumulate, cash is
Correct.
starting to accumulate. I didn't necessarily see a game plan going forward in the next 12 months or in the current fiscal year. You know, based upon your business plan, what do you anticipate your cash levels to be at the end of year? And, I mean, obviously, your expenses are gonna increase if you're increasing people's hours,
Correct.
but,
And health insurance,
and health
because,
insurance.
you know, you have to provide that as well.
Right. You know, we anticipate the cash balance, cash on hand to get substantially increased by $100,000?
Maybe.
Okay.
What's the next payout, capital payout by Verizon?
We actually don't. We received the last of those capital grants.
Look,
That's why we have 300,000 in the bank, so.
that's why you have that 150.
That's not the entire reason why we have 300 in the bank, but yes.
You have
That was a contributor, because we'd been waiting for that money to come through for the longest time, so.
155,500 capital funding is part of.
The initial startup grant, right.
Okay, so
Right.
that, but nonetheless, the regular franchise fees is about $225,000.
Correct.
And
So
again,
over the-
expenses, we're running 110,000. So again, theoretically, you can have another $100,000 cash on hand.
If you look at the operating budget for FY 2011, under Section B, employee salaries, that tells us out to 114,000 plus, almost $115,000. Our occupational expenses come out to about $56,000, actually almost $57,000. And under new equipment and general repairs and whatnot, that comes out to another $52,000. So actually, we only have a surplus of $474 this year. Granted, it's a surplus, that's good. We're in the black, we're not in the red, we're not in debt, we're not taking any hindrance or burden upon the town. And, you know, that's all we got,
Yeah,
though.
so your budget is basically spending what you're taking in for franchise fees and leave the cash balances about where it is.
Correct, correct.
Trying to make a motion? Is that a motion, Sean?
Not yet.
Also, there was a point brought up earlier about the town being held liable. And if you read Section 13 of the agreement, there's a hold harmless clause for both parties. So actually, the town would be fine, as far as I know, according to the agreement. So I know that came up earlier, it was mentioned, so I just figured I'd clarify that for the people in town and for you as well, so.
No, but the point that's made is that the cash flow from Verizon and Comcast goes directly
Correct, correct.
to you.
Right.
And it's, you know, it's essentially a fee that is tacked on everybody's cable bill.
Correct.
Again, I tend to agree with Mr. Delaney in relation to the time frame, maybe moving it to a three-year audit. I mean, the facility and the operation is continuing to grow and
Correct.
still feeling some growing pains. And at some point, it'll somewhat stabilize for a while because at some point, the fee structure isn't going to change. You're not going to have any more customers
Correct.
necessarily.
And we probably won't get any more capital grants either, so.
So
So
at a
the
certain
only
point-
growth that they can see is through running programs and things where they can collect, generate revenue.
Correct.
Right, and based upon their proposed budget here, what they're looking to do now is get to the point where whatever they take in, they're gonna be spending. Which doesn't leave an awful lot for capital, other than the capital funds that were put forth by
Correct.
franchise. So that leads me to ask another question, maybe you'd have to take another look at your budget. At some point, you're gonna have to factor in some sort of capital expenditures, and if you're spending it all on personnel and
Well, that's just proof in the pudding that, you know, we're not going to Hawaii on this money. We're actually spending this on what it should be spent on, and it is actually all accounted for. It's up to $474 because that's the surplus.
We've got about $50,000 in equipment and repairs.
Correct.
In the budget, 52.8
Right.
annually, so.
Is it possible if I make a comment on capital?
Go ahead.
You know, the reason you do an audit is to look at things and see whether they're being done correctly or not, okay? If you look at the budget, I really didn't want to get into details, but if you look at the financial statement, you'll see that they spent about $15,000 on capital equipment in the operating budget. Now, the capital, the money they have set aside, that is given by Verizon and Comcast for capital. That $15,000 shouldn't have come out of operating funds, should have come out of capital funds. Now, I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but a lot of what they're doing, they don't know because they're not accountants. That's why you have an accountant look at this. I want to stress again, I think it's a mistake not to go every year. It's a mistake. And I want to tell you again, this isn't me speaking. I'd suggest you call Copeland and Page and ask them because they recommended the language when I did it. And town council clearly, he says to me that he recommends this in every town, regardless of the size of the town. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
You shouldn't have advised us to go for the review then.
Who advised you to do that?
You did.
That's a lie. You know it.
Let's cut that.
Call Fulvesino and
Cut it off right
ask him what I told him.
Mm-hmm.
So, gentlemen,
Well, do we have to vote on it tonight?
no, but,
Maybe Greg can talk to legal counsel and make sure.
well, I think it's fair to ask. Based on what I've heard tonight and some of the points that Phil has made, the one thing that an audit does do is, you know, it brings out a lot of additional information that we might want to know. In other words, it allows us to delve into, you know, another layer of debt. Now, that's a trade-off that we have to make a decision on. How comfortable do we feel versus just a simple report? And, what the frequency is. I'm comfortable with not doing it every year, but I'm a little less comfortable with the decision that we made the other night.
Yeah, that's why I concur with Sean, a 3-year timeframe. And I think, in the short term, in the next 2 or 3 years, their income and their expenses are going to be rather stabilized, just as a result of the income stream. And what they're going to have is the residual funds left over from the franchisees in relation to the capital contributions that were made, and that'll be spent down over the next, if they do $50,000 a year. And again, as Phil pointed out, you're looking at doing $50,000 a year out of the operating budget, yet you still have $300 and some odd $1,000 in the bank, of which 155 was just given last year, the last payment from Verizon, correct?
Correct. Verizon and
We
Comcast,
could,
it was combined.
Oh, combined, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
A suggestion might be is we leave the language to require it every year and grant a waiver at their request, which is essentially, I think, what's been going on.
Which is what has happened up to this
Right.
point.
The other thing I'd add, I'd have next year be year 3, because an audit hasn't been done
Right.
since the start. So with next year being year 3, the audit should be done when you close out your books December
Sure.
31st, 2011. That's the first time an audit would be required to be done.
That's a good idea.
I'm willing to work with the will of the board. I have nothing to hide. If you have any further questions, too, you
No,
can
no,
always
you
call
don't-
me, so,
This
I
is
know-
not
I
a
know-
witch hunt at this
Yeah,
point.
it's not.
Not even close to it.
you know.
And nobody's questioning really what's transpired to date, or it's just a question of, how do we want to move? Well, you came in with a request, which we acted on favorably,
Right.
Last week. Other issues, have come up, concerns have been raised, which are legitimate.
Sure.
And, as Phil pointed out, it's a good insurance policy for the community, for the town, to have it annually, and have a separate set of eyes, independent eyes, come in and look at everything and scrutinize. To the nth degree, the question is, as the chairman pointed out, what's our comfort level? And, is it really totally necessary? I mean, I, for one, don't think it's totally necessary to do it every year. But I understand the points that have been made.
Yeah.
I just think in the not-too-distant future, this whole situation is going to be stabilized in relation to what they have in the way of income, what they have from revenues, and again, what they have for capital monies left. It's just a question of how is it managed and how is it
Well,
going to be.
pending, what ideas they might come up with to generate revenue,
Right.
above and beyond
Right. They get into
fees.
the fees and the advertising and all the rest that they can get into. But it hasn't grown enough yet. You got one guy here.
Right, so, we've spent a fair amount of time on this.
Sure.
Where are we going? What are the
I think
wishes of the board at
take
this point?
Delaney's,
I'd move that the board grant a waiver for NORCAM in terms of an annual audit, that they be required at this point to present and prepare an audit every 3 years.
Sure.
And calendar year in which they operate, their FY 2011 would be the year in which their audit would have to be,
I think it's calendar
Oh,
year.
yeah, ending.
calendar year ending December 31st, 2011, an audit.
First audited.
First audited. And going forward, once every 3 years, but they have to come and request a waiver from the board from the requirement of an annual audit. Does that make sense? It seems to be a little confusing. but-
yeah,
I don't know why we even need the 3 years. If we're just gonna give them a waiver.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting, you don't change the language, and that way,
Okay, they'd have
they
to
can
come
come
to
and
us on an
request a,
annual basis.
They have to come
request a waiver. They gotta-
15 days before the end of the calendar year. They have to come to this board with their budget for the next year. So
Correct.
I think at that point, they should come and submit, request a waiver at that point.
and,
That's part of the plan.
we'll
We'll just add that language to that section. If you want the section, we can change the motion to amend that section. even if we have, I don't even know if we even have to.
Well, we should maybe put some language in there saying that there's a process for requesting a waiver. I feel very comfortable about that, Mr. Dardino. They're better than,
If I may ask, Mr. Chairman, you suggesting that you would leave the language as a yearly audit, but allow for a waiver?
yes.
And
Yes.
for a waiver? I could live with that.
Okay.
Excuse
So the
me,
motion is to, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
just 1 second. With the waiver, are we talking, because we were somewhat talking about having an audit once every 3 years. So are we talking allowing 2 successive waivers?
No, well, we're dropping that.
I know that, I know
Basically
we
not
are.
changing the contract, but
Right.
we're permitting a waiver.
I
Now, you
understand
could
that.
say, waivers are permitted no more than 2 years in a row, right? I mean, that could be
Yeah.
put into the language that would guarantee that
We'd get it every
future
3 years,
board
yeah.
would at least, require.
One every 3 years.
One every 2 years, it'll,
Yeah, that might be the best way
you
to
understand
resolve
what
it.
Maybe we modify paragraph 4, that budget and audit, and include in there some words.
I don't think you want to go back and modify that agreement. I
Okay.
think you want to have an addendum to that, because we're not changing that agreement.
right,
Other than granting them a waiver.
That's a good point.
yeah.
Well,
So-
it's still a modification of the agreement,
Yeah.
as far as the terms and conditions of the agreement. That's it.
Mr. O'Leary, you proposing some language?
Maybe.
Okay.
We're gonna,
We'll allow him to finish
Well, at this point, all we need to do is accept this year, accept their review,
review, right?
and then require them to come to us December 15th to request a waiver.
Right, but I think we're also asking for a full audit for next year. I think that was the general intent of the board,
Well, that is the intent.
because there hasn't been one.
Correct.
Right.
So, what did you have for motions in there?
I didn't have any.
Nothing, okay. So while Mr. O'Leary is preparing that, I'll accept a motion to accept the audit report. No, it's not an audit report.
review.
The review.
Audit review for for calendar year 2010.
So moved.
So moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Yule. On that motion, discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous.
All right.
I'll wait for Steve.
let's just, something like this, just under number 4. Just add another sentence. NORCAM may request of the Board of Selectmen a waiver of the audited fiscal report on an annual basis. However, an audited fiscal report must be provided at least once every 3 years.
Great.
Great.
You want to have a date by which they need to request a waiver?
Well, if we're putting it under section 4.
Yeah, it's going to be section 4, which we have to receive the report by, they have to, beginning of the fiscal year, January 1st, when they have to give us the, let's see.
15
So
days
within
prior
15
to-
days of the beginning of their fiscal year, and the audited fiscal report, when it's completed no later than March 31st. So it's up to them. If they don't request a waiver, they're required to give us, if you don't request a waiver, you're required to give us the
Right.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that.
audited, the audited statement.
Of course, Christmas gift.
Mr. Chairman, Ed Parrish, I'm on the Cable Access Committee. When they do request a waiver, are they required to submit any report or just no report at all?
No, they would be required to submit a report, of course.
Yeah, they would,
I mean, submit a review or
A
yes,
review,
yes,
right.
yes.
They're making a waiver not
Audit-
to have
no,
to
good
submit
point.
the full audit.
Yeah.
Waiver.
Yeah.
Report.
Waiver to have a review.
Steve is going to fix that.
Yeah,
Thank
they
you.
request a waiver. The
Thank you, Ed.
so it'd be a waiver of a report in lieu of an audit.
What, I'm confused as to what report they would need to provide
Review
to
and
us.
audit. They gotta do a review every year.
The
Yeah,
review.
but the review's not due until March 31st.
Yeah, right, same thing. So basically, what it just say, a waiver of the audit, NORCAM may request a waiver of the audited fiscal report and provide an audit review on an annual basis. However, an audited fiscal report must be provided at least once every 3 years.
Okay, I misunderstood the gentleman's question, Mr. Parrish, I guess. I think he was suggesting that when they come to request the waiver, at that time, did you ask whether or not they should present some sort of? Oh, okay.
If they request a waiver, that they should
Yeah, in lieu, they,
at least provide what
correct.
they're providing today, the review.
Yes, okay, all right,
Right.
fine.
Point's
Fine,
well
I
taken,
misunderstood the question.
All right, so what I'm suggesting is NORCAM may request of the Board of Selectmen a waiver of the audited fiscal report and provide an audited review on an annual basis. However, an audited fiscal report must be provided at least once every 3 years.
We'll write this up for you.
But before we do that, I'd like to have a motion to rescind the vote of Monday, what was it, the date?
June 6th.
June 6th.
So moved.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Delaney, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Leary. Discussion? Allison, just make note that it was on the NORCAM vote that we, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Mr. O'Leary?
Mr. Chairman, I move to amend the agreement between the Town of North Reading and NORCAM, designating NORCAM, Inc. as the Community Access Corporation, dated the first day of October 2007. Section 4, Budget and Audit, by adding the following sentence. NORCAM may request of the Board of Selectmen a waiver of the audited fiscal report and provide an audit review on an annual basis. However, an audited fiscal report must be provided at least once every 3 years.
Okay, I hear a motion, second by Mr. Delaney. Discussion further? Hearing none. Mr. Kaliopoulos.
Just take the word audit before review out, because that gets confusing. It's a review, period.
Wrong.
Because an audit is an audit, a review is a review, so now you're putting two words
I
together.
think we all understand what the
That's all.
language
It's
is.
No, there's an audited fiscal report and there's an audit review.
All right.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a great night.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, we've had the town administrator's report.
Item number 4, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it.
We just did it.
Oh, was
You
that?
were out of the room.
I was out
All
consulting.
signed, it's right here, my friend.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're here for you.
Take care, Phil.
All right. Take a brief
7 done also?
recess.
Which one was that?
EDC
No.
now, and we'll wrap up with
What's that?
liaisons and old and new business. Is that how we're gonna do it?
Well, on old and new business, we're going to talk briefly about, I failed to get it on the,
Great.
yeah.
Do the liaisons now, or you wanna do old and new business now?
Well, we're going to do liaisons. We'll finish up the,
Gonna make poor Heidi sit there through all that?
Yeah, I'll give it to you.
no, we could jump to that. Yeah, we may have a long discussion about liaisons. Yeah, why don't we do that? As soon as Sean comes back, Heidi.
Okay. You guys started off with old business now.
Quick question.
Yes.
Only thing I was trying
I'll
to
hit
check
the
with
rest
you with
with
the auditor, was this the number they were talking about, the post-employment benefits that was impacting this unrestricted?
Yeah,
number?
but that number seems to be,
Does that one just happens to be coincidentally close to what he talked about?
yeah, but that number should be substantially higher than $5 million.
Well, he referred to about 5 million when he was talking about.
He was talking about this number.
Right, the net effect on the assets. And he said it was being driven by about $5 million in post-on, I thought he said post-employment
But I thought
benefits.
you said something that was closer to 35 million. That's what,
Eventually, that's, I think, what Mike wrote to.
I ran all around looking for it, then I
This
found
was
it.
a
current
Yeah.
value, current value.
Yeah,
No, that's
Very
fine,
well,
yeah.
yes, I would agree that that's the number.
because I think this is, we had to get up eventually to 35 million, and it increases so much per year.
Right.
So, the other thing I thought I heard, that our switching to Medicare for retired employees might reduce that.
It will definitely reduce that.
All right, it's gonna reduce the 35 million.
We just don't know the numbers. Definitely will be reduced.
And that's what he said, it's gonna reduce something.
Yes.
Yes.
those.
Yeah, we have. Okay. Yep, sorry to
No,
hang
no
around
problem.
out there.
Thanks for sticking around.
I thought I just wanted to grab that. Okay, thanks very much. For a while, following the meeting. So we're gonna see you Friday morning there, Bob? 4 o'clock in the morning?
I'll be there at 3, so no
Out and set up? Mike is looking for,
Break them out, I had to be a bouncer out there. Break them up. Don't want any blood in the hallway.
Heidi, why don't you pull up a chair?
Okay.
Somebody move the chair? Oh. No problem. She can have my chair. I'll sit up there.
I would get near the, or,
Yeah. I'm gonna move this back so you can sit here next to the mic.
Oh, okay.
I think he moved it because it was in the way of the camera.
Oh, well. We'll have to figure that one out.
He's got a camera over here. Chunk there.
Geez, so thin. Let me get him in.
Get him in here. Herding cats.
You're lucky. Lots of gloves.
I'm gonna skip over liaison assignments and come back to it, and an old and new business, and I should have had it on the main agenda item, is we had talked about forming a economic development committee, and Heidi, back, I think a couple weeks ago, it's sent out some examples of chargers that other communities have put together. And I think from that, based on what I read anyway, it looks like a compilation of
Yes.
what you thought was good.
Yes.
And that gets sent out, and if you haven't seen it, I did put it in the Dropbox.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, and thank you for all that work putting that
Oh,
together.
you're welcome.
Yeah, great job
Heidi,
putting.
one of the tools we're using, if you put it into convert it to a PDF
Yeah,
and email it, they can put it directly into their,
into the Dropbox.
well, I mean, it can, anything can be put in the Dropbox, but in terms of viewing it,
We can put
some
it
of
right
the
into our
tools we've been
library.
using can be put right in the library,
Oh, okay,
directly from the email, so.
okay.
uh,
So I don't know if you want to discuss the
Just-
compilation or
Everybody
have
got a
preliminary?
copy?
Yep.
Get that
I
handy?
got it. Jeff, you want it?
What had happened, as Mike and Jeff will tell you, is we had a few preliminary discussions at our CPC meetings, and we reviewed, I don't know, like 6 or 7, 8 towns. I had put out a email on the Mass Planners listserv. And in addition to that, I know that Sean and Mike also spoke with the town of Reading or the
Chamber.
Chamber of
Commerce.
Commerce.
So this sort of is a compilation of sort of everything, but in a condensed version. And then
Sean
I-
talked with the chamber, I talked with the
with-
town.
Okay, and, sorry about that. And, then I also created an application, in the event we move forward with this. But, one thing that came up at our meeting was that we just wanted to make sure that the list of tasks didn't exceed the number 10, and that the subcommittee then sort of be able to focus on a small list of tasks so that they'll be easily achievable. So I don't know, if you wanna, that's sort of further into the document. But essentially what this does is the Board of Selectmen would be the group that makes the actual appointments. Some towns, it's been the planning, sometimes it's been Board of Selectmen, but in my opinion, I think it has more teeth with the Board of Selectmen. That's just my professional.
Has this been vetted by the CPC, by the way?
They just received this the same day as you.
Okay, all right.
So this is like, that's why it's
Okay,
called
so it
draft
has
one.
not been a discussion there?
No,
They've
discussed it.
discussed
discussed
it.
They
They
have.
haven't received this
Oh,
particular, what I sent you
Right.
today. They received it the same time you did.
Okay.
As far as
Is the-
the position of the board, this board making the appointments, not a joint
They-
appointment, or
I brought it up at
They-
one meeting.
Right.
And I said, my personal opinion is that I think this should fall under the Board of Selectmen, not the CPC, based on the research in talking with other towns. That was all I said. But we never agreed or disagreed
I didn't
with
get,
it.
I didn't get the impression that they had strong feelings that they should be the appointing
I
authority.
didn't. In
I thought
fact,
they
I
were
think
thinking more
Warren
of a
was in
joint
agreement.
appointment. Right, that's the impression I got as well.
thinking more of a joint appointment?
Yes, so the way I drafted this was more that we would be part of the screening process and make recommendations, and then the ultimate appointment would be up to you.
Right,
Well, that's not
Yeah, a
joint
little,
appointment.
that's a little different than a joint
Right.
appointment.
Right.
right.
Joint appointment is each member has one vote for,
I can, like I said, this is just the first draft.
Yeah,
so
no,
it can
no,
be
it's great,
done.
it's for
No, I-
discussion.
Think about.
Yeah,
this is.
So
this
your
is
feeling
all-
is,
This is
your
open
feeling is
discussion.
CPC would prefer to have a joint appointment process? Is that your sense
that's
from?
that's the only discussion that we had.
Okay.
Was a joint
But,
appointment process.
but was it your feeling that the CPC would prefer a joint appointment or not?
I didn't get I didn't get
Right.
a consensus.
I would concur.
You don't know.
No.
We don't know yet.
Sean, in the meetings that I have been at, when we've had these discussions, Bob, that I think that the CPC was leaning more towards the Board of Selectmen.
Well, I think
So
right
I
now,
think-
we're not making those decisions.
Right.
I understand that, but I mean, just to give you a feel of
Yeah.
what they were thinking.
Okay, so,
Okay, so that pretty much explains, the draft explains the rules. It was, I created it, the way I thought one of the more successful towns have an economic development committee that actually works. The first page is just technicalities with the mission. I would suggest you take a look at the second page with the suggested tasks and short-term goals, only because these are just my brainstorm ideas, nobody else's.
Yep.
So at one point, we'd have to come up with a consensus, but the first one was to designate areas of the town as an economic target area, which I think we've discussed. We've had Peter Milano come in. Another would be to have an open public meeting with business representatives. The third actually is congruent with number one, which has the data to investigate and review the SOAR report, which we need that data to become an economic target area. And then you would also utilize that data at one point to move forward if you were considering presenting town meeting with a SOAR proposal, which directly ties into economic development. Fourth, create a list of companies, businesses the town wishes to recruit. I have gotten some emails back from the ad I put in the newspaper, so some people have emailed already.
I
And we
have that
already
list with me.
Yes, and we do have a list as well. The fifth is important, and the reason why the timing and creation of this committee is important is there are a lot of business owners that are somewhat unhappy, or I've heard feedback that they're unhappy with the town sign bylaw. It's a little bit old, it's a little bit outdated. They consider it anti-friendly. I would push that up in one of like the top 4 lists of things. In order to get that done, you have to create the committee fairly quickly because our deadline would be August for your October town, I think it's like August 15th usually. And that's not a small.
No.
And we already have sample sign bylaws that we're working on, but.
But why would you need this committee in place to make?
We
that
don't,
change?
it's just if you want the buy-in of the business, if you want the input of the business, and you want to hear, like, I've heard discussions about why don't we allow A-frame signs, why don't we allow banner signs just for seasonal purposes. If you want their input when we create it, so that when we get to town meeting, it would be helpful. Reading through the others, focus on finding tenants for the Stop and Shop building and the adjacent Heffron property on Winter Street, which is obviously right behind.
Yeah, on this one here, I understand the reason why it's here,
Yes.
but I don't know if we want to be that specific in sort of a task. I think that's going to probably bubble up on its own without us identifying it as being that specific.
Okay.
You could just say vacant commercial property.
Well,
Okay.
I think later on in your presentation, you do talk
I
about,
do.
you talk about, doing an inventory of available properties and having it on the website, and those two that you're talking about
Would
would be
fit in.
specifically, would be included in those
Prominently
properties.
displayed
Anyway,
there.
yeah, and actually, they'd be ones that you want to be
Okay.
talking about sooner rather than later, but.
So delete that.
No, not delete, I think
Not delete it.
I think it shows up somewhere
Falls under the
else.
umbrella of the other.
Of the other item.
inventory.
Okay. 7 is review and analyze the economic development section of the community development plan, which is the town's master plan. It hasn't been updated since 2004.
Right.
And I see,
What
I
is the
see-
time frame on requiring that to be updated?
Every 10 years.
10 years.
10 years, okay.
And you referenced that in the application too.
I
Right.
did, yes.
So-
To make sure that
But,
people
yeah,
look at it.
I just suggest to put where people can find it.
Oh, on the website? Okay.
You guys have it, we have it in Dropbox.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in terms of the application for people who are going to apply to be
Right.
Yep.
potential members,
Right.
they may get the application and say, well, where is this? Just location.
It's a really good document, though.
The, let's see.
So 8 was what Mr. O'Leary was discussing, about doing the survey of undeveloped land
Yes,
and commercial
yeah, I think that's where.
development. Which part of that might actually overlap with the sewer report as well?
With what?
Once we break down the numbers with the sewer report that we have, it would then
Do
be
a
a matter
source
of breaking
study.
down the mass numbers and then going out and inventorying them, but. And then determining which ones you may want to designate additional sites as priority development sites for expedited permitting. You're not going to get any more money. We got in when we got the most money, which was 150. They're giving out 100,000. You don't get any additional funds, grant funds, but it's just a permitting incentive for businesses looking to come into town.
Should we add something in here associated with the state's Office of Business Development?
I would say we would put that back on our number 1, because we would, to get the designation of an economic target area, I have to submit the application to the Mass Office of Business Development, which then
So,
sends it out
okay,
to
it's
the.
all
it's
tied
all-
together.
Right. Create a town business marketing pamphlet. I saw that Reading had one. I actually like theirs a lot. I thought that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a
That
nice
was a great,
document.
it
yeah.
is, yeah. Pamphlet on permitting, we have one. I did it when I first started, 2005. It's kind of long, should probably be updated. Might be scary to people, because it's accurate, but it's just, it's long, so.
I haven't seen this Reading pamphlet.
I'm sorry, I have
Oh,
one
Sean
copy
has
of it,
it.
yeah, I can pass it around, people can take it and review it.
It's really good.
This is the one, their passport
Yep.
to doing business?
So it lists everything, including, the permitting process.
Yeah,
and-
it's sort of like Windows for Dummies, those sort of series of books. It really just breaks it down very simple for people that are looking to come into the town, start a business. And it's like A to Z, it has it.
Well, generally, we have a pretty cumbersome process.
We do. I mean.
Here in North Reading, we do. We have very, very tight controls over what's going to happen, and,
Well, that's the whole issue. Are we considered not business friendly? Right? And how do we change that image?
Right.
This is,
It's
a nice
very, it's a good
Very nice
document.
document.
And then the last item was just, which I noticed that 2 other communities do too, is they just list key vacant properties, which I think they got off that LoopNet website as well, some of the other planners said. And so basically it would list the address and how much square footage is available, and then who to call, who the property owner is. Now, those were all just 10, I tried to make 10 simple. Obviously they sound simple, the signed bylaw is not simple, the ETA designation is not simple. Presenting sewer and getting buy-in at town meeting is not simple, but the other ones are easily attainable. So, if you have anything that you want me to add, that won't make the task daunting to a committee, or anything that you think I haven't thought of.
I just think this is, I shot out a couple suggestions that Sean made about taking the names out.
I like it. I think it's a great
No,
start.
I think it's a wonderful starting spot. I mean,
All right, good.
The composition of the subcommittee, I think
I
is.
think as a board, though, we should just decide, before we rush off and add it and put any more time in, do we really want to do this? I don't think we've
Yeah, I don't think
stated
we've,
it one way or another.
Well, if we go back to our goals back, you know, in our long-range plan,
Mhm.
and, you know, maybe we didn't state it quite this way, but just the general term of increasing our commercial tax base,
No,
this is right. This is what it's all about.
it is.
So I don't see an issue there at all. I think we want to do it. Now, you're saying, is this the implementation we want to take to achieve that goal? Right, well, yeah, I guess we could discuss that.
without doing something like this, I don't know how we get to the end game. I really don't.
No, we don't. because
You and
we
your
don't
staff
have-
are not big enough to do
Right.
it on your own. I think it lends a hand to Heidi and the CPC.
Kind of all in it together.
I think we get buy-in from
Well, I
residents,
think
business
residents are
owners.
gonna buy in because they see the value of commercial property. When you have, I'm assuming your bond rating's done by Moody's and the other companies. I used to do presentations in other towns. They like towns having economic development subcommittees because it shows you're promoting economic development, even if you're not specifically generating tax dollars. It shows, you drive them around town and you show them where you've been helping communities, where you've been helping sites look for companies to go into.
Right.
It
It's-
can't hurt
It's
on
come to
any
the point,
level.
it's comes to the point in time where we have to be proactive.
Right.
We can't sit back and wait for them to come. We have to go to them and tell them
Yes.
why they need to come here, and why they should come here.
Yeah, that's, getting back to your list here, is that something that's missing, or am I missing? Yeah, and that would be kind of taking an inventory of resources that the town has that's pro-business. You know, whether it's high-speed internet, location to 93, 128,
Nope, that's a good one.
maybe a list of
think-
some of the
Which I
some of the
think would go in
businesses that
that
are already in the
book.
community that
Yeah.
have come here for specific purposes.
Yeah, I think that's tied, it's not specific, but I think number 9, it would be encompassed in number 9 in terms of our marketing pamphlet.
Right.
Yeah.
It'd
Okay,
be
yeah,
interwoven in there.
okay. That would be a place to put it.
All the positive attributes of North Reading as to why a business should consider us to look at.
Now, the one question I have been asked by numerous people who have either been at our CPC meetings or just come into the office is if we're going to have a residency requirement, because there are some people who they may not live in town, but they're business taxpayers in the town, and they might meet some of the qualifications. I'm going to tell you, it's split. The communities that I looked at, some have a residency requirement, some don't. I'm just going to give you a heads up that it's something for you to think about, because
A residency requirement regarding what?
to be on the
Membership on
subcommittee.
the committee.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know, so if
So
you're
you-
going
so
to
in
have a
other words,
local
like-
business
I thought you were
permit,
talking
you know,
about
local business
business owner.
permit or a property owner, you know, happens to be a commercial property owner here.
Yes.
A longtime business people in town, but happen to live somewhere else.
Some- right.
You know, North Andover, or, you know, somewhere around here, but spend the bulk of their time in the town of North
I
Reading
guess
and
I
have their
guess I-
investment here.
I guess I go back to the objective, you know. How do we best achieve the objective?
Yeah, see, I
And
have no,
wouldn't restrict
I have
it
no
to-
problem with,
know.
with
If there's somebody out there that has a
Well,
My
business
opinion is
in
the
we-
most
town,
qualified.
That's why
People-
that
Right, we just had
key.
Kiever
Yeah.
locate here,
Right.
right? We had a business like that locate here. Wouldn't it be nice if we had someone from Kiever, someone from their marketing department or so forth, or business development as to why they located here, join this committee? You know, we may want to go out and actively recruit someone from Kiever.
What I do know is their director of, what was their title? Not marketing, but media, lives in town. I have her card, I don't remember her name now,
I think I have it in an email.
What?
I think you sent it to me.
but I
in an
think I
email.
gave it to you.
You gave it to me.
But I concur, if we're going to if we're gonna go this route and embrace this idea and the concept, you know, we have to set ourselves up to succeed.
Right.
And if that means, you know, tapping into human resources who happen to be residents somewhere else, so what? you know, they're business people here.
Right.
And they're looking to promote the economic development of the town of North Reading, then, you know, let's take advantage of what they have to offer.
If I may, I concur with that whole philosophy, but just to be a devil's advocate for the moment, if you have a committee like this and turns out that nobody's from the community.
Nobody what?
Nobody's from the community. It turns out that way. Would that pose a problem, do you think? It would appear to me from the residents it might. So we might want to have some type of mix if we can, or at least say, I don't know how many are going to be on the committee, but say they're going to be 9 on the committee for argument's sake. Maybe 3 should be from the community or something like that.
Sorry. Well, I was just gonna say, well, I figure, I'm assuming you're gonna have a liaison from the Board of Selectmen and CPC, so you have 2 residents there. And I think I know where you're going with this, so
yeah.
I'm gonna guess maybe you want like 2 additional residents out of the maximum 9, depending on,
But I think
you might want,
we have
you
to
know,
establish an
someone from the community
application,
at large.
though.
Right.
Right, an application that maybe has 3 or 4 questions that make sure that the person that's coming meets. I know she's written it up.
Yeah.
But we have to
Yeah.
take a look at that and embrace it.
But I think Jeff's point is, do we really want to be open to a committee that's
Non-residents.
all non-residents?
Right.
I see his point. I don't think it's going to end up that
Well,
way, but
I wouldn't think so
that,
either,
You know,
but-
maybe Greg should weigh in here. There is a, you know, the
He's
development
he's a
team.
non-resident.
There are other committees, that have non-residents on it. I can't recall.
Yeah, I
Can't
know.
recall, but they definitely
No, but Greg,
Yeah, census.
Greg, the development team, how does that fit in to this?
They're a stop along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
we're in
that's
the,
true.
we're in the book.
Yeah.
there's a stop along
We're-
the way.
Should there be a
Big
member of
stop
the
sign.
Well,
That
development-
first
basically-
off,
Should there be a member of the development team on
if you're gonna have me on it, I'm the chair of the development
Oh,
team.
okay.
If you want someone else,
No, no,
that's
okay.
fine too.
That
So
answers the
it's up-
question.
It's up to you.
Did you say you are the chair of the development team?
Yes, when Dave left, they voted I was de facto chair.
Were you absent from the meeting?
No, no, sadly, I was there.
That person's the secretary.
Sometimes that person's secretary, yeah.
I know how that works, yeah. No, I was there.
No, but just to finish that, you mentioned something very important, that you'd have a selectman that would be a resident, you'd have somebody from the CPC there's a resident, so, you know, maybe that's not a concern that we have to have.
Well, the
Just
question,
thinking it out.
the real question with respect to that is, do we have a selectman liaison, or do we have a selectman as a member of?
Well, I would caution the board that you may designate the liaison as a voting member, because we had situations before, if you recall, when we appointed a member of the board.
Yeah, and then he left.
And then he didn't get reelected and didn't vacate the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
Okay,
So you can designate the liaison as a voting member.
then that would be the right thing to do, I think.
To protect
so, too.
ourselves
Yeah,
from
that would
ourselves.
avoid that issue.
As a voting member?
As a voting member?
as a voting member.
Yeah, what happened before is that, you know, a selectman moved on, but he was still a member of one of those committees, you know,
Right.
and took up a seat
Because he
that
was
should have been
appointed as an
occupied by another
individual rather
selectman.
than as a member of the board.
Right.
So when
My
he no
sense is he
longer was a
caused
member of the
havoc.
board, he still had the seat there. And the board then didn't have a seat at the table necessarily, so. But the other thing, just getting back to the appointment process, you know, the only thing that I want to avoid is the political pitfalls of these types of situations whereby a tug of war takes place. You know, to me, I would just as soon see joint appointments with the planning commission, because, I mean, they're charged with the responsibility of community planning, and play an integral role in the permitting process, and zoning bylaw, everything that has to do with all of this. I mean, we oversee the whole picture, but they're a separately elected body that has specific responsibilities, and I think, well, your suggestion of, you know, having them as part of the screening process to forward the names and recommendations, along with all the other applications, you know, then we get into the
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
the
I
political
fully agree
I'll
pitfalls,
just-
the
Yeah, I
political
agree with you
pitfalls
too,
of it
Steve, yeah.
all, and,
So you want me to just draft it, so like when we had an
I-
interim
unless they
CPC
want to
member leave
abdicate,
and do the joint?
you know, unless they're willing to
Get that in
advocate a while,
writing.
that's
Get-
fine, but
Get
to
that in
me,
writing.
they're an elected board just as much as we
Should
are
be
here
joint.
and have
Yeah.
as big a role to play as we do. And I just think if we're going to be making appointments such as this, we agree on the ground rules as far as, what the makeup of it's going to be, whether we have a residency requirement or not, and whether we require a certain percentage of the committee to be or not. See, to me, if we're in this all together between the planning commission and the board of selectmen, the best qualified people are gonna get appointed,
Right.
regardless
Right.
of where they sleep at night. And we're gonna put people on this type of a committee to actively go out there and work it for us. So, the only other concern I have is, now this is a subcommittee of sorts, it's called, but is it strictly advisory? Because again, I want to avoid,
It's advisory. I put in
if there are
that,
differences in philosophy between this newly appointed board and the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Commission, again, we run into terrible political pitfalls, which shouldn't happen. So from the initial stages on, it has to be quite clear that we're all on the same page what we're looking for. I mean, you've got Concord Street out there with 2 vacant trucking terminals right now with a tremendous amount of potential, if only we had sewerage. Greater potential, but still great potential right now. And again, all we're getting people to looking at it is other dealership, tractor equipment, things that aren't gonna generate an awful lot of revenue on a tremendous amount of square footage, which could be generating a lot more. So, I mean, to me, we've got to make sure that we don't create another body that's gonna clash
Right.
with the elected boards. So how are we gonna do that? It'll be a direct result of truly what is their role and their mission, and where does the final say really lie? Does it lie with with the Board of Selectmen, Planning Commission, the Board of Selectmen, or who? Which board?
So, Mr. Chair, is there a way, thank you, is there a way that if we give that committee jointly with CPC and Board of Selectmen, give them a charge, maybe some specific charges that we know along the way, and that if they meet those charges, we more or less agree to do that in advance? Because if they meet the charge, there's no reason for us to be changing our minds because they've met the goal.
We may not agree with what their recommendation is.
No, if we give them a charge to get 3 types of businesses, for example, in the community, and they do that, if they've met what we requested them to do, then common sense would say we would support it. But we probably need some obligation, they need some obligation or commitment from us that if they meet their charge, we will support it. So that's all. Yeah, I don't know the specific wording right now, but I mean, I think.
you want to incentivize
An
them so that
incentive or
they'll
whatever.
continue to
All
work.
too often, committees are blaming the other. The biggest thing about the Board of Selectmen is that, well, they never listen to us. Now, never is, it's not true, but that does happen. And if we're trying to bring the town forward as we are, and we need to do it collectively with the CPC, that once we give somebody a charge to do something, we need to give them that commitment pretty much beforehand in order for it to be accomplished.
Well, I mean, if we have our strategic plan and we're gonna, to me, that's sort of the top view, and you start bringing it down to achieve it, this committee's gonna play a big role in that. So the objectives are kind of laid out at a top level, and then you allow this committee to develop their objectives and how they're gonna help us meet our objectives.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not sure about incentives. They wouldn't be doing this if they weren't incentivized. Right? I mean, you wouldn't be joining committees.
Well,
if
I
you
think,
didn't have
I
a
think
motivation.
Jeff has raised a caution. It has occurred in the past where, a committee has a charge and they go out and they come back with a recommendation, the board thumbs it down.
No, I'm
You know,
I'm very familiar with it. But I think we have a little bit more now that we can build off. I think we have a really good
Well, this
strategic
is
plan.
almost a little different, too, from the point of view of, to some degree, they're doing marketing, they're doing research.
Right.
Identifying and attracting people to come into town, right? I mean, there's got to be an ongoing dialogue between this committee and, when they get to a point where, you know, they're gonna invite, you know, maybe they've identified some company, and they're gonna invite them in to meet with us, and, you know, there'll be a dialogue going on there, and decisions will be made after the, you know, after that process. As long as they're part of the process, I suspect that, you know, even if it, in the end, it doesn't work out, they've been in the process along the way, and as a result, can't feel like they were neglected.
I think what Jeff was getting at is that one of our meetings, one of our board members said they had been on a subcommittee, and, you know, for whatever reason, some of the recommendations weren't taken. Their solution to that was to make the goal short so that the committee doesn't get discouraged. So I put 10, but if you look above it, it's like bolded that we should initially choose and focus on a small number of tasks, which are readily achievable in the first year or two. And I'm hoping, you know, that with the right people on the committee and with the right staff assisting them, that they'll be able to identify which 3 they can achieve right away, so that then they get a feeling of accomplishment, and then they're not deterred from returning.
Mr. Chair, part of my thought process on this type of a committee is that if they come up with a plan of what, and a vision of what they feel the mix of the type of businesses that should be in the town that will help build up the town, and if they have, you know, looking for some businesses in the medical field, some business in some other retail, and some computer businesses and so on, if the committee is able to identify a variety of businesses that will promote the town, and we position ourselves so that if they come along, if we don't find it, but someone else in California wants to move some of their offices over here, and they see that this is a good place, and we're all set, we have a plan. This company fits right into that slot for us. So if the committee is set up that way as well, then we don't need to, at that point, have to go through a long process if we already have the slots already set up. And so
We can't pre-approve a particular company coming in. I mean, there's a whole process that they have to go through.
No, I understand that. No, I
But they may
understand.
be able to incent certain types of businesses to land in certain locations. You know,
Right.
take the Stop and Shop
Oh,
as
yeah.
an
Oh,
example. You know,
sure.
if we want some sort of a medical facility there, as opposed to a retail facility, you know, maybe, there may be some ways in which, you know, some sort of incentives can be provided for certain amount of leasehold improvements being done, therefore getting a waiver on certain property taxes for a period of time in order to make the investment there, for the types of businesses that we want to see come into our community. And I see this particular group coming forth with those types of ideas,
Right.
providing us with what other.
I agree with that, but I don't think that was Jeff's point.
Yeah, I don't
no,
think so either.
That's pretty much what
I thought so.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's pretty
I
much
also
what I was
think
saying.
that
Maybe I didn't.
we should put our money where our mouth is on this one, too. If we do this committee, I think we should, maybe not initially right out of the gate, but down the road, we should put some money in a budget for this committee to use, to do things like that book, and to go out and participate in some of these economic development conferences. Not the whole committee, but some elected member of that board be chosen by their committee to participate. But the problem is, if we don't put some money against this, I think we're gonna be fooling ourselves. And we're gonna do a lot of work, and if we don't have the money behind you to help support some of the little stuff, even this document, maybe the master plan, you know, where does that fall out in the budgets? I mean, who does all that stuff anymore? I don't even know anymore.
Every town paid $30,000 for their master plan back in 2004 when the state mandated a community development plan.
Didn't it fall under Park and Rec
Mike.
one time?
I'll use the,
No, that's the open space plan.
That's the open space
it,
one?
yeah.
Okay.
I think you put the onus on whatever committee is formed to put together a plan and define funding that they might need.
Right.
If we go back to the beginning of the IT committee, previous town administrator formed it, it went off, it did some assessment, it came back and made a request for capital at a town meeting. So, I mean, if we could get this thing off the ground that quick, which is kind of tight,
Yeah.
they could come to an October town meeting with a plan and a budget recommendation, and, you know, we would decide whether or not we want to fund it. Maybe it's to fund, you know, come up funds to put a brochure together
Yeah.
and to do
A
some,
marketing plan.
some outside research. But, you know, I think that initially, you know, we're not gonna be able to fund this short of maybe some short professional funds that are in Greg's budget or the CPC budget until October town meeting. Or after October town meeting.
But bottom line, it appears as though there's a consensus, obviously, to embrace the concept, the idea as you presented it generally.
Right.
But I think we need CPC obviously needs an opportunity to
Right. They've seen pretty much
talk about it a
all
little
of
bit
this.
more at length, and then
Yeah, maybe
together we
we'll-
should get together
Maybe we should have a joint meeting.
and have a joint meeting.
That was where we left it.
You know,
Yeah,
and then-
that was where we
then,
left
you
it.
know,
up with that
last
Once
idea.
they've had a chance to absorb it, get a chance to, we should have a joint meeting, just one night, sit down and hash it out and decide how we're going to implement.
So I guess if you get back to me or have,
June
Lauren get
21st
back
at
to
6?
me.
Yeah, no, maybe so.
No,
Well, we have the
meet-
4:30 school meeting. And we have the 7:30 CPC meeting, so
When was that?
June 21st at 6.
I won't
Look
be
at
there.
everybody's frowning.
Yeah. I'll be out of town.
She's like, no.
Our meeting schedule
But
is
it-
the 11th.
Yeah, we had the John Norton thing that night.
Oh.
I'm gonna be out of town too, so.
I knew I had something on that.
And so our next
So you're
meeting,
the,
Our
we
next
meet the
board
12th,
meeting is
so
the
that,
11th.
July
Okay.
11th, right, and then the
And then the one
25th.
after is the 25th. So in between, if you have your meeting and you get back to me, or Warren gets back to me, and we can
Okay.
make one of those meeting nights, we'll put it on the agenda.
okay,
We'll put it on first so that, you know, we get that off the,
okay. All right, and then I'll,
Not that I should change it, but I would rather it be the 25th, just because I missed the 11th. That doesn't matter, you can still do it without me. Be nice
I
to
don't know.
participate.
25th of July?
Yeah.
no
But we only
vacation.
move meetings for
We
Mr.
cancel all
O'Leary.
vacations in July.
We don't move any for me.
I think we have in the past. Actually, one of your first meetings, we had to move for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That cost me $1,500.
Are you gone for the week, or?
Cost me a babysitter.
Yeah, remember I talked to you about that.
All right, so in the meanwhile, I'll bring this back to the CPC. Our meeting's the 21st anyway, and they've already seen, like I said, all the other communities, and I told them I like Situate, that was the one that we kind of focused on that night. And then I'll revise it to, you know, accommodate a joint appointment.
Yeah, if that's what
If
they
that's
wanna
what
do,
they want,
unless they
yeah.
wanna throw it all on us.
Yeah, I think we just didn't get a consensus that
You
night,
didn't get a
that's all.
consensus that night, and
Well,
I was a little
think
I didn't-
Now that
disappointed.
you've got this document produced, and
Yeah.
you can have a meaningful discussion like
Yep.
we've had this evening, you know, and you can present to them what the board's feelings are.
Okay,
Yeah.
but pretty much, like, the goals and everything in here seem to work for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great job.
It's-
Really nice
Really
job.
good.
Super, super job.
Really good.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Heidi?
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Drive carefully.
Okay, next item on our agenda is liaison assignments. I just want to make this statement before we have a free-for-all. Okay? After living through the past year, I think it's in our best interest that we have one liaison per
I concur.
group. And based on that, I've made, you know, I've put a proposal there. I think that where there's contention between who wants to be liaison, if you can't come to an agreement, I'll make the final decision, because that's the chairman's job,
Prerogative.
okay? So if you want, and you find it more convenient, I did print out copies,
That would be good.
Yeah, I'll take a copy, one copy too.
because I thought it would be easier to mark up than using the,
Yep.
and what I've done is I put the current assignments, and on the right, I have, let me give a copy to Greg, just to look at it.
That's good. I don't have any on
Yeah.
this
Oh,
one, which is
sure.
great.
Well, give me the.
Go with the red line?
Yeah.
You say,
This one has none. I don't have any on this one. I like this version here.
what do you mean?
Oh, it got, oh,
Cut off?
it got cut off.
You can have this one. I made my own.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I don't want to have any. That's
You've been impeached, you don't know?
impeached.
It's been a recall.
It's awesome.
You're out.
Ooh.
No, it's okay. It's on this one.
Oh, I see what happened.
Yeah, it's just the
It
printer
just got
stopped.
pulled out. Okay.
Scaring you.
No, I looked at it, and the copy I had
wanna
was
stick
okay.
But
Let's do
So we go
CPC
down the
first.
line.
Let's do CPC. Heidi would like to know who her liaison is before. she
Okay,
leaves.
so currently there's two, it's Mike and Jeff, and I think my recommendation was to have Mike continue on the CPC. And I don't see the lines through these either.
Yeah, Jeff, oh.
It's a light,
Mine's on through.
But it is on the one on the Dropbox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
The one on Dropbox, you show
Evidently-
a line on Jeff.
there's a line here.
There is a line there? Oh, yeah, it is there, it's very
If you want my
faint.
glasses.
No,
Very
that's what
faint.
happens.
Without the glasses, it's not
Yeah.
there. With the
Yeah.
glasses,
See it
it's
now?
there.
Well, I'm colorblind.
No, I got,
Red line,
yeah,
I don't see it.
yes.
What's that?
I'm gonna go
I don't
back
see
to
black.
this
I
because,
don't have that.
You,
No, mine's not through my name,
No.
so. I can see it.
Dropbox.
Where in the
Dropbox.
Dropbox is this provided?
In tonight's meeting, and it's,
14th?
yeah,
yeah, the lines didn't show
Wasn't
up,
there, was
unfortunately.
it added to it?
Okay.
yeah.
So what are we using?
It's under, if you go into tonight's
Okay.
meeting, see it says
Well,
liaison.
You can see lines on yours?
Yeah?
That must
Yeah,
be
a lot
the
of stuff
original
was
that he
added
printed
late,
out. Why don't you get that?
No, I
get
got
that-
No, I
Something,
printed,
You got lines? Through your name?
No.
It's there, it's very
Yeah, it's
faint.
there. You need my
Very
glasses to
faint.
see
You
it.
need Jimmy Steve's.
Oh, it's underneath. It's underneath.
No, it's right through the middle.
No, it's through the middle of it.
yeah, but it's not as clear as
It's okay.
as I had intended, I apologize.
Jeff, you
You
go to your
see-
Dropbox, it's very clear in the Dropbox version.
Where are you seeing lines through? Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah, like
Oh,
Sean,
yeah.
Sean, there's a couple you've
If
been
you
out.
blow them up big enough, you can see the lines through. So, the first one, Jeff, I was recommending Mike to continue with the CPC, and you, the other one that you and he shared was the youth services.
Yeah.
And that you do the youth services. Now, that's my recommendation. If you guys want to trade it off, that's okay with me.
Put the gloves on.
I,
Arm
yeah,
wrestle.
it's not a matter of gloves, it's a matter of,
I was joking. I wasn't serious.
you know, I mean, I haven't been involved with the youth services at all since the change was made a year ago, or just over a year ago. I've enjoyed the CPC. I'd like to think they enjoyed me and being there because it, you know, keeps me involved in a way that I think is important, and I think I have a good perspective to offer them. So I would rather stay with the CPC. I'm okay with not having the youth services at this point. And I don't know if the youth services would be that ecstatic about having me as their liaison. So I think that as far as committees being receptive, I think that the CPC would be more receptive to me than as opposed to the youth services.
Michael?
I really would like to stick with the CPC.
They've never been this popular.
We're so popular, yeah.
No, you know, if you look at the strategic plan stuff, and I spent a lot of time on it last year, and you really tied it into a lot of stuff for you guys to do, and I think for us, and I believe in that strategic plan we have, and I think for us to continue to be successful, we have to stay close to it. So I feel pretty strongly about staying as well.
All right.
And when it comes to the youth services, you know, maybe it's not either Jeff or I, maybe
No,
make a change.
that's true, we can change that too. So I guess I'm gonna be forced to make the decision, and my recommendation is to have Michael be the representative to the Community Planning Commission. On the CPC, let's go down to the youth services. Jeff, if you feel uncomfortable with that,
It's not a question of whether I feel uncomfortable with it, it's a question of how they feel. I mean, if you go back to our conversations about when you decided that I should not be the liaison, I don't know if any of that's changed from their perspective, so.
well, originally you and Mike were liaisons.
No, originally,
Initially. Yeah, originally.
I think,
If we go
No,
back to
originally-
last year,
Midstream, you made a change.
you made
which I may not have picked up, okay.
But, just so we know, going into this, the way you currently have it with your lines through it would leave Jeff with 10, Sean with only 7, you with 12, Steve with 10, and me with 11.
Right, and the chair
So-
has some that are just, liaison to the town administrator, town council, town moderator, town
So,
treasurer, so.
Sean is a little light in the
saying?
loafers. You're a little light in the loafers.
I think I'm carrying some heavy stuff.
Yeah, he's got the infrastructure, that's heavy.
That is heavy.
It's a lot of weight
You're
to
at
hold
school.
up from this body of mine.
I'm just pointing it out. I just want to know we're keeping score, all right?
I hope that infrastructure's gonna turn into
Well,
EDC.
well, Jeff, why don't we do this? We're going to have we're going to form this new committee. Right. And we're going to need a liaison and a voting member to it.
EDC you're talking about?
EDC?
Yeah.
That's one I'm very
Yeah, I know.
strong.
But that's, yeah, that's right. We're going to have one person now on the committee, right?
Right, that's,
Ah. Go down the list,
Bob,
Jeff.
can I ask you a question, Bob?
Yeah,
School committee, do you go to the school committee meetings?
on occasion.
What about,
Wanna do school
what about
committee,
Jeff doing
Jeffrey?
school committee? Because Jeff, you have such a tie with them, and
Well, I think we all have a good time
Oh.
with the school committee. Well, I guess,
I feel
Partially-
less strong about, before, it was set up before the financial planning team where
yeah,
the
the
chair
financial
was a
planning,
liaison
right.
to it.
Right, it's a little bit redundant at that point. But, having been the liaison to the CPC, I was looking as strongly towards the Economic Development Committee as well. Because I actually thought that the liaison, whoever the liaison was for the CPC, would probably be a good one to be on the Economic Development Committee.
Well,
And since at that time we had two, it probably would have been perfect for either Mike or myself to be that person.
well, I'd like to see the vice chair do that job, so I guess I'll make that decision too. School committee, Jeff, or not?
Well, you meet with the school committee, well, not the school committee,
No, I don't
but
meet with the
you'll
school
meet
committee, I meet with the,
You meet with the chair and the vice chair,
Yeah,
the
so
member of the
it-
finance planning
this
team.
liaison to the school committee is, going to their meeting every once in a while. By the way, you don't have to go every meeting.
Well, I
There'll be
appreciate that.
conflicts too, because on occasion, they meet on the same night we do.
Well,
You want me to change that or not?
who is on there now, Sean?
Me.
you,
you?
Bob.
you want the library trustees, Jeff?
No.
Really?
Thank you.
Okay.
School committee or not?
I'll take the school committee in lieu of
Okay.
that.
All right. Any other changes anybody want? Mr. O'Leary?
No, fine.
So just make sure I see it. You made another change.
Now I'm gonna add the,
On the information technology, it's only Jeff, right?
right,
Okay. Just make sure I see the lines right.
right.
And
By
then,
the way,
Bob, you
that's an
took over
important.
from,
Yes, I know.
Bob, are you
I know it's
taking over
important.
for Steve, or are you guys both on the J.T. Berry Reuse Committee?
No, I have,
We were both liaison,
right.
there were
And
two on that.
I've taken Steve off, I think, but if you want to
Well,
continue.
when
J.T.
was
Berry?
that?
Yeah,
Oh,
I can't read these things.
J.T.
Yeah,
Berry,
Steve, there's a line
17.
through
Oh,
your
yeah, there's a
name.
line through my name. No, I mean, I would continue, particularly if there's gonna be
Even this is too small for you. God.
activity there. I'd like to continue.
you
So I'll
want
be
to
there with two
continue?
of us. Yeah.
I can swap that, I don't have a problem with that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the two of us being there.
I think with a project that big, it may
Well,
make
it's a,
sense.
it's a voting thing, right? Did we have two, selectmen had two votes?
We were there.
That's a J.T. Berry, right?
Yeah, we did. But
All right, we'll leave it the way it was then.
Just because of the size and scope of that.
Right.
Well,
Makes
it's also, I think, the committee itself, right?
Is there two selectmen on the committee?
Were the two selectmen on the committee? I'm trying to remember.
Supposed to be? Is that how it was set up?
Well, it's number of votes that you have to, any change that might be made to the balance of that property.
Right.
We'll go back to when that occurred, it was a narrow margin to convert it to,
because you don't know clearly, I would suggest
I'd
leave
keep
it
it
the way
the
you
same.
had it before, with both of you on
For
it.
now.
And then down the road, you two guys
Yeah,
can
if we need
work
to
it out,
work
but I
out,
think
we'll
you
go.
probably should not touch that
Okay.
one. Because of the importance of it. The next one down, it was Sean, yeah, Jeff's taking over information technology, then you, Bob, you put me under yourself, you put my name under your column for Martin's Pond Study Committee, and then you cross Sean off. So did you mean to put yourself there or me?
Hang on a minute.
You got Prisco in the Messeri column.
I do?
You
Yep.
do.
Number
It's
23.
over to the right.
Right.
23,
That's it.
Terry, there.
Yeah, that's.
It's over here.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know if you meant to put yourself under that one and leave, and take Sean off that Martin's Pond Study Committee, is it called?
I meant to put you there,
Okay,
and what I did was I put it in the wrong column,
all
that's
right,
all.
that's fine.
Because there's a line through Delaney.
Crossed out again.
Down to 6. You got nothing to do.
Well, I'm gonna give him a couple.
I know.
It's not quantity, it's quality, Michael. All right? That's what it comes down to, buddy.
Any other changes? Let's see, Barry, where in the hell's the Barry?
Down at the end, the Energy Study Committee.
That's
Yeah,
been Jeff, right?
That's
Jeff.
me.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't change it.
Well, you just crossed off Sean, I just wanted to make
Sean
sure.
is off.
Yeah.
You noticed that. And then you crossed me off of.
Officially off.
I crossed
Youth
people off
Services
the
and
doubles.
Financial.
Yeah, Youth Services, we still have
Youth
to,
Services and Water Commission. No, what were you on?
I'm the Water Commission.
Jeff's Water Commission,
Yeah.
so,
Financial Advisory Committee, you weren't on anyway. That should be Bob.
no, it's the FAC we're talking
The
about.
Oh,
FAC.
FAC, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
which is gone anyway, so it doesn't matter, it's gone. So I guess, yeah, the only other one we have left to work out, the Youth Services, but I also wanted to throw my hat into, only because I'm very interested in learning about the Hillview Commission, to see if, Steve, you would be interested in trading up on,
Trading up? How do I trade?
oh, you can take the constables or something.
I had them. I had them years ago.
I know, they talk about you all the time.
They love you all,
They
Larry.
love you over, they really want you back.
I know.
But I would,
Hillview loves me too.
but I mean, it would be nice to learn about the Hillview. I mean, I really don't know a lot about what's going on over there and what it takes to run the operation. I was just curious. I mean, I don't want to get into a big debate. If if you're not interested in letting it go, then
That's true.
I will, I won't fight. But next year, when this comes up, I'd like to be seriously considered for the Hillview Commission. So,
Go for ZBA.
no, I'm not looking for more work. I'm very interested in the Hillview Commission. It looks like a lot of, Bob, you've been a member on there, and you know quite a bit about it. So the answer you said was,
I'd like to keep it.
okay. Then I'm going to put my foot out there for next year. So next year, I would like to definitely be considered for the liaison position. If I can't have it this year, then I think it would just
We'll
be fair.
cross that bridge next year.
All right, I just want to make sure, so we don't get into a big fight about it next year.
Okay, Jeff, on the Youth Services, if you're not comfortable,
I have no problem doing it. I'll do it. No
Okay.
problem.
okay. Anything else? I will update the list and send it out, and it'll be official.
Not bad.
Okay. Old and new business, we covered the,
TA's report.
Mr. O'Leary?
Since we now have access to the Smith property, just food for thought. Maybe we could start thinking about accessing the property, doing something with it, and something other than just trails or something too. But I was just thinking something like a community garden. You know, they do it in a lot of communities where people can go down and stake out a plot and plant
Well, we
some
have a garden club.
plant
Maybe
some
we could talk to the
vegetables,
garden
you know, plant some vegetables and plant some flowers and things of that nature, and
It's very interesting.
maybe, you know, there's a different sense of community when you do things like that, and it might be a good use of the property. People get
You
used
have
to going down there,
I think
accessing
we'd have
it.
to set up some guidelines.
Yes, just set up
first.
some guidelines, and maybe, you know, we should present this to the LUC.
Yep, I was gonna say that.
Or somebody else to maybe take a look at it. And
Yeah,
it might not take much to clear some of the land and lay
Sure,
some
the
plots
garden club
out
would be a-
Yeah.
and
We
talk
didn't have a
about
garden
having,
club.
at one point it was farmed, and of course there was horses down there too, but there might be something just to look at. It's something that we don't currently have in the community that I think some people may embrace.
Right.
So, just food for thought, now that we have access. And, start
Interesting.
utilizing it.
So who would pick up that ball and run? What
Well,
outside
LUC, that would
organization
fit
that
under
we
the
have?
LUC. And then you have the garden club, right?
Well, you got the LUC for starters, because.
Just, you see a
yeah.
status to just, lay out what, may have to be done as far as
Yeah. I'll talk to them
providing
about
some access and clearing and things of that nature, and then we can talk about, maybe you can form some sort of victory garden club,
Yeah, I know some
just
of the
to have
people
a
on the garden
community
club.
garden where people might wanna go down and, plant some vegetables and socialize and do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Greg, you have any comments, concerns?
Nope. That's all.
Anything else?
That's it.
Michael?
Just a few, because it's been a while since we met, and I don't want us to lose track of the excellent work a lot of volunteers in town have done since our last meeting. And first one, I just want to mention and thank all the volunteers that pulled together the Relay for Life. I went down and spent some time down there, and they did an amazing job this year pulling that off. The whole Arthur Kenny field looked wonderful, and Marty Tilton and his guys did a great job down there getting it prepared for it. Also want to thank the Memorial Day Committee for all their hard work. It was a wonderful day. I really did enjoy it. The other thing I want to point out is, I'm not sure if you guys have been down to the Arthur Kenny Field and saw that new Walk of Fame. The brick walkway, the entranceway now into the athletic facility. And Marty Tilton and his guys and the Friends of North Reading Park and Recreation did an amazing job being able to pull that off the day before graduation. They got it all done. And Marty went down there and did wonderful landscaping. I can't say enough about that guy. And you guys, if you haven't been down there, go look at it. Go and look at it. You'd be absolutely amazed how beautiful it is. And I also wanted to thank Kiva Systems for that wonderful, fun food drive they did. They weren't here long, and you should have seen the tremendous
I saw
amount
it
of
in
food.
the lobby when I
Isn't
went
that
to the
amazing?
open house. Yeah.
I was blown away when I came down to see it. It was wonderful. And the last thing is, this Friday is the Zip Trip. And I know we've talked quite a bit about it, and I'm not going to say or give anything away. Not that I even know that much, but what I do know, I think it's going to be wonderful, and you got to come down. I hope the parents can work it out with the principals to come down to the event. I did exchange some email with Kathleen Willis about letting the kids participate, as long as they don't have tests and any other conflicts. She didn't see that would be an issue. But I do hope all the board members would come down that day. I think it would be nice if you have an opportunity to come down and at least see a lot of people, a lot of businesses going to be there, a lot of people from town. And again, Marty Tilton, what a great job he has done. And you should see it down there. He's been working down there day and night, pulling it together. I mean, I don't know. I know we don't have an employee reward program, but I got to tell you, what Marty has done for this town and what he does, phone call, just one quick phone call, day and night, 7 days a week. That guy is, you talk to people all around town. I can't say enough about him, Greg. So I'd like it if you wouldn't mind sending him a personal message thanking him for all the work he's done with the graduation, the Relay for Life, the getting ready for the Zip Trip. It's been truly amazing. He's been able to pull that off with his small department and the Friends of the North Reading Park and Recreation for the money they raised for that Walk of Fame to make sure that graduation for the class of 2011, which is the last thing I want to say, is congratulations to them. Thank you.
Michael, maybe you should mention the time frame that Zip Trip is running.
Yes, it is an early morning. It starts filming at 6 o'clock. I will be down there at 5. It starts at 6 and it wraps up around 10. So please come on down. There's going to be, I understand there'll be lots of food and probably coffee and things like that. So come on down.
Who was the contact?
For the Zip Trip?
Yeah.
It's me.
Who was the, no, who, on the Fox side?
Oh.
Who's gonna be there?
Well, they have a whole team. They have a whole cast, a whole crew that comes
Yeah,
down.
I know.
Do you want an individual's name that is going to be there?
No, there must be some prime contact that you're.
Oh, then I'm working with?
Yeah.
Her name is Liz Magner.
Magner?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've been in touch with Greg, and originally it was Greg, and then I took over most of it and been in touch with her. So she's been running it and managing it. But she won't be here the day of the event.
Yeah, okay. And, you know, the show, actually, there's a number of things they've already done that'll be put up on the air on
Yep.
Friday.
They've been out to film about, I think it's 3 times now.
Mhm.
They've been over to the Horseshoe and the Ryers, and they've been the Kitties, and they spent 3 hours with Brad Jones
Yeah. I
Jr.,
heard that.
and he had a great day with them. There's a few other things I won't mention.
Okay,
I'll give you an opportunity to have some fun and surprises.
okay,
You never know, they could come knocking on your door, too.
thanks. All right. Anything else?
That's all I had, thank you.
Sean?
Just a couple of things. First, I want to recognize 2 town residents. One's a town employee, Jim DeCola. About 2.5 weeks ago, there was a gentleman boating out in Martins Pond, flipped his boat. Jim was the first one who responded and contacted our fire and police department that came down and had a successful rescue down there. The other is a state trooper by the name of Jeff Stokes, who resides in town. He and his wife. Jeff was on a detail, not in North Reading, but was approached by a gentleman who collapsed in front of him and took a massive heart attack, and Jeff and his partner were able to save the man, get him over to Mass General. The guy survived. So I recognize both of those residents for saving 2 lives. In addition, is the issue I have regarding businesses in town that are operating either unlicensed or unpermitted. It goes beyond the Smith property. I continue to get calls and notices. Matter of fact, I have one in front of me that I received from a resident of Foley Drive concerning a business down in Foley Drive that's, in his opinion, it's exceeding the scope of the permit, the license that the company has. I'd asked the town administrator to approach the building inspector to address these issues and have him make a determination whether or not these businesses, if they're running a business and they're unlicensed or unpermitted, shut them down, take the right steps to shut them down, or if they're exceeding the scope of their permit or their license, something needs to be done. These businesses become a blight on the neighborhoods and the residents that they operate out of. We dealt with it down on Linwood Avenue about a year ago. I think they need to be addressed. And they're taking advantage of a situation in which it's impacting the businesses that go through the legitimate process to get properly licensed and permitted by the town. And that's how I feel on that particular issue. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sean. Jeffrey?
Yes, just a couple of things. Greg, on the Smith Bridge, is there a schedule or going to be a schedule soon to have those bridges repaired and brought up to speed?
There will be, Jeff, we just haven't caught up yet.
Okay. No idea, no plans or anything like that?
Until I get a Public Works director back, sir.
Okay, hopefully we can get one. Also, I want to recognize Carol Bork, who was on the Water Commission. She resigned. She had 18 plus 2 years on the commission, and she put a lot of time and a lot of dedication, and she still wants to come to the meetings, but as a spectator, as a citizen, I should say, and give input when appropriate. So I want to thank her for the 20 years that she has put into the town, into community service, and I'm sure there are other things that she's done that I'm not aware of. And that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I would like to thank my fellow board members and the town administrator for what I consider to be a very successful town meeting. I consider that we got through it in a reasonable period of time with minimal issues, and it's much appreciated. I also like to thank the citizens who attended town meeting because, one, we had to have a quorum for the special town meeting, and it didn't take too long after we started the regular meeting that we reached the attendance, and people seemed to stay for the entire meeting. I didn't see a lot of people get up, typically what we've observed at other occasions, and attend town meeting. So we've got that behind us, and guess what, folks? We start the budget process all over again very shortly. Just a reminder that our meeting schedule for the month of July is not the regular first and third Monday. It's the second and fourth Monday of July, so it's the 11th and the 25th.
In August is the same way,
And August is the same.
just because there's 5 Mondays in the
Yeah.
month.
So, you know, we probably won't have, hopefully won't have a lot of business in July. As we come out of August, though, you know, town meeting is upon us, so there will be some activity toward the end of August.
We're talking the 8th of August and then the...
Yeah, it's the 8th and the 22nd.
22nd, right.
And with that,
You're not gonna mention the flagpole? Nobody mentioned the flagpole, I was waiting.
well, I mentioned the flagpole. The
Gone and
flagpole on the
forgotten.
common fell over. It finally gave up the ghost. Fortunately, when it fell, it fell, one, away from the facility. That was a good thing, and two, is no one got injured. In fact, I don't think anybody was there when it fell over.
What about replacement, though? What do we,
Yeah, I was kinda curious.
I've heard some...
I heard an
Astronomical
extraordinary
figure.
number, which I
Extraordinary
find hard
number.
to
Right.
believe.
That didn't come from us. I have no idea where that number came from.
Okay, but, I mean, obviously, I think...
My wife
I'd like to
brought it
see it
home from the
replaced.
meeting
We
at the
agree.
council on, Friends of the
Yeah,
Council on
making note of
Aging
that.
last night, so.
Yeah, I would like to see it replaced.
I'll
It's
discuss it
certainly
with-
well lit.
I agree, I discussed with DPW plans for replacing it. I think, get back to you in terms of that, but I agree, it has to be done sooner than later.
And I guess it's not a repairable situation.
I think it was already repaired. It was in two parts.
But actually, the pole itself was actually in pretty good shape. I think it was the steel that was holding it up that actually rotted out. I
Well,
mean,
when
the
it
pole
fell,
itself was
evidently,
fine.
yeah, but I think when it fell, I haven't seen it, but I heard that it
Well,
broke
they had to
apart.
cut it in order to move it too, from what I understand.
Right.
Running light assisted and,
It's put on a pole trailer.
yeah.
It's an old mast, is that confirmed? That's what I heard.
That's the rumor.
What about,
Bob would probably know.
what about firewood?
Oh, gosh, no.
No,
It's gotta be dry by now.
26?
you haven't heard from the Historic District Commission yet, have you?
Now we will.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session
For
for
the
the purposes.
purposes of collective bargaining strategy.
Mr. Chairman, I move to enter into executive session for the purpose of collective bargaining and litigation strategy. Such discussions in open session will have a detrimental impact on the town, and further, the Board of Selectmen will return to open session for the sole purpose of attending
For German.
for adjournment.
Although, are we going to, are you expecting us to ratify any contract?
No,
tonight?
nothing has been, to the best of my knowledge, nothing has been
Okay.
ratified by any other side.
Okay. For German.
For adjournment.
Adjournment. Yeah, it says right now, it
Town
does say,
meeting,
it's- yeah.
Back to town meeting.
So we have a motion by Mr. Prisco. Do we hear a second? Second by Mr. O'Leary. Mr. O'Leary?
Aye.
Mr. Prisco?
Aye.
Mr. Delaney?
Aye.
Mr. Yule?
Aye.
And the chair votes
You-
aye. We'll
you
take a
seconded it, right?
3 or 4 minute break for the cable committee to, cable
Bob.
operator to
Good night.
close down.
Good
Thank
night,
you,
Bob.
Bob.
Good night, Bob.